John Lund Unleashed. A voice as smooth as a Curry 3, a wit as sharp as a Timmy curveball, and the looks of, well, let's just say God doesn't give you everything. John Lund Unleashed. Weekdays starting around 8 a.m. Pacific on YouTube and where you get your favorite podcasts. Please like, subscribe, and tell your friends and enemies. Now, fashionably late, with a bad excuse, here's Johnny.
Yeah, you know that. That's why we wrote that. Is because we would be fashionably late. We know we're fashionably late. We're always late. People are pissed. I get it. But we're back. Guy Haberman is here. It's 100% my fault. He is a true professional. The hair is on point. He's amazing, and he joins us as let me put you in this thing, man. There we go. There you are. Good morning. What's happening?
Johnny Lund.
Good to see you.
Great to be with you, man.
It's great to be with you. We have a ton to go over, but first, before we get to all that kind of stuff, before we get to sports talk and Verlander and Saleh and all that kind of stuff, and you do a tremendous job. We've known each other, for those who don't know, you and 𝐸𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐸, before you did a highly successful podcast. You guys were doing middays when I was on 95.7. You came over from Fresno. Jason Barrett, who was just firing through shows like crazy. So you came into the Bay. How long has it been? How long have you been in the Bay Area?
Well, I moved back up. I'm from Davis, but I moved back up, which is not the Bay Area. But I moved back up. It was like December 2nd, 2012.
Right.
Yeah, I did a test show in October after Game 3 of the Giants Tigers World Series, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then December. I think it was December 2nd.
What's amazing is I had probably come a year earlier. Barrett brought in on 95.7 The Game a bunch of guys. It was probably a mistake. He brought in like Brandon Tierney from New York, and it's like, hey, yo, how's it going? I hate the A's, hey. So that wasn't the greatest thing. We shuffled through about 1 million shows, and you guys were awesome, and everybody knew it. And then all of a sudden, you guys went into this amazing. Podcast. You and 𝐸𝐸𝐿𝐸𝐸𝐸, and then now you're doing an amazing thing now beyond your play-by-play, and then your YouTube channel is awesome. So I take inspiration from guys like you. Krug's done a really nice job. I know they did a piece the other day, I think in this SF Gate, and they should have mentioned you because you've done an incredible job building this thing. But I just wanted to bring it up because I've known you for a long time. You've done amazing things. I tell George, who, by the way, you're not old, I'm old, but like I used to bring him, and your show was before me and Papa. We were 12 to 3. You guys were 10 to 2. I used to bring him and like give him tons of stuff and give him money for the snack machine, and he would just sit there at my cubicle, my small cubicle, and you guys would be doing a show. And now he's 21. He just turned 21 January 3rd, and he's at Arizona State. And nobody knows better than you. I mean, it's unbelievable how fast things go.
I remember when he was just a kid and you were bringing him into bars.
Yeah.
He was just a little kid.
And I was bringing him into
bars with his dad.
I mean, seriously, it was absolutely ridiculous. And so, so I just wanted to give people a little bit of a background on things because it's crazy how long we've known each other and your ascension and all those kind of things. So what kind of, we're going to get into things in just a second, but we need to do a little bit.
Wait. But what I want to say is, I mentioned this semi-recently, but, when your time at 𝐾NBR came to an end, one of the things because you were always, I learned a lot about doing shows from being around you and watching you run shows. And I don't think people
You're
quite
just being nice.
No, it's really true. And you always gave so much good feedback and encouragement, and it was extremely helpful. I mean, I can't overstate it. But one of my very clear memories of the end of my time in radio was, I always say it because like I was living in the city and I had just gotten this great parking spot on the corner of Goff and Greenwich. And I can remember it's right on the corner. I was pulling into the spot and Lund calls. It was a Friday. And he was like, hey man, I'm hearing some things. I just want to give you guys a heads up. They might be trying to, end your show, which they did the following Monday.
Right.
After the show.
Nobody did that for me, by the way. Nobody told me anything about. Nobody did that. They should. That's what people should do.
Sorry.
Like, get a heads up.
I'm sorry. I've known for months, so I didn't tell you.
I know, right? No, I'm driving in. When I got let go, I'm driving in, and I get a call from, I don't know, my producer or something. He goes, they're going to let Tolbert go today. And I go, are you insane? Like, I thought it was a joke. I thought like April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
And then I hang up the phone with him, and I didn't think much of it. And I'm driving along the Embarcadero, and I go, if Tolbert's gone, I'm gone. Like this is not going to be like Tolbert's gone and everybody survives. And again, I'm not ripping radio, but we're just spitting facts here. You and Middlecoff, and you specifically, and Middlecoff's done a great job with Colin and all those things, but it's going away. I mean, that's just, there's no other way to put it. And they did me a favor in the long run in these things, but you pivoted right away. And this was long before anybody did any of this stuff. You and Middlecoff, like, boom, right away. You guys knew you were good. Whoever were the powers that be didn't get it, and you guys were great, and you pivoted, and you guys had a ton of success, and now you have success now. So I'm not as far along as you, because all of a sudden it was like, first couple days I'm playing Madden the whole time going, what the hell do I do now? And then all of a sudden I thought, you know what? They just did me the biggest favor in my life.
Yeah.
And you guys knew that right away.
Well, we should also note that at the time, Jason Barrett was gone from the radio station at the time.
Yeah, he was. That's true. So I don't want to put it on him.
There had a breakdown in communication for a while.
Yeah.
When you called and told me that, I didn't go like, oh my God, this is breaking news, John.
Well, and you have other things going on in your life. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm screwed. I'm going to become a realtor. But I mean, you're doing great play-by-play. You're awesome at it. I was going to finish my sentence on George, and then we're going ADD here, and then we'll get to some real topics. So I tell my son at Arizona State, he's at the Cronkite Broadcast School and doing a great job and has all these things set up. And I said, don't do what I did and do. I said, do what Guy Haberman does and did and will do. I said, you want to do play-by-play. He's got my hair, so he's got no chance. He's going to have to get a piece or do something like that. But that's the guy.
Like, get plugs.
Yeah, he's got to do. Oh, yeah. I mean, Joe Buck did it. Everybody
I know is getting transplants.
Yeah, it's no big deal. All right, so let's get into this thing. And Guy Haberman has joined us. It's absolutely great. I love Guy. And we just wanted to go quickly back. And he's busy. He's got things to do, so we got to get to stuff. So let's start. Let's just quickly start on Verlander, and then we'll get to the 49ers. We don't have to go long on Verlander. I felt like doing a quick, like one of those emergency, things, and I ended up doing it for 20 minutes, and then I went back and I watched it, and I repeated myself a million times, which is, look, 10 years ago, this would have been awesome. We would have been dancing in the streets. It would have been great. He's the number one. Logan Webb's the number two. But I look at this, and I'm not mad at it. It's just I kind of laugh because Buster Posey's trying to get guys left and right, and he gets a guy that he's actually a peer with. And I like him. He's got an arm, like a Nolan Ryan kind of an arm. He might be able to do something. But for those, I'm just cautioning the fans that for those who think you're getting Justin Verlander, even from a few years ago when he was, 18-4 with a 175, you're not getting that guy. You're getting this is a flyer. This is a $15 million flyer to say maybe it could be the 4 or the 5. He threw, 90 innings last year? What were your thoughts on when you saw that?
Well, my thoughts were very casual. And I mean the word casual in like the way that people use it in a derogatory way, like, it's just a casual, which is just give you a reason to flip it on the 5th night of the week. You know what I mean? Like, here's the thing I like about Verlander, and my guess is, I think part of what Posey has to be thinking, and I remember I was doing AAA baseball back when Buster was in AAA. I was in Fresno at the same time as him, and I would walk into the club. Bumgarner was there too, and I would walk into the clubhouse, and Buster would be in there grinding the tape, like watching his swing, right? And that guy worked hard from the beginning. It's no accident. It's no secret why he had success, because he worked his ass off, and he was a competitor. And I think there's got to be part of Posey that's just like, yeah, I know Justin Verlander is not Blake Snell, but I also know that Justin Verlander is going to want to take the ball and pitch 7 innings. Now, he's not going to do it much, right? I think he went 6 one time after May last year. Yeah. But he's going to want to. And you win games with guys that actually do it, but you build culture with guys that want to do it. And I got to think that's part of what Buster is thinking. Is like, I don't know how many times, it's probably 3 times, maybe. Verlander will pitch into the 7th inning. Right. If he makes 20 starts, 17 starts. He made 17 starts or something last year. But is that right? 17?
Yeah, he made 17.
Yeah, 17.
He's so good.
But I just want somebody who's going to grind a little bit here, or at least on the day that he's got the ball, try to go 7 innings, 8 innings. Yeah. That at least be his goal. I mean, so I think that's got to be part of it. Like, you're not. Generally, when you make signings like these aren't the ones that take you to the World Series.
Well,
But
yeah,
I understand it in year one. And the other thing is like, I haven't. I'm sure you went back and looked at Randy. What were Randy Johnson's numbers when he came back and pitched for the?
Don't assume that I do anything. I do think that this is a similar signing, but I didn't look. He was okay. Yeah. But here's what because I'm looking at this rotation saying, okay, and maybe they just don't have money to spend because we all got excited. Buster signs Willy Adames. You actually get a bat to come here. And so everybody thinks the floodgates are going to open. Well, they're not going to, and the Giants don't act like a major market team. So as I sit here and everybody's excited, and, I don't know, maybe Jack Flaherty, maybe he's asking for too much, but Verlander's a flyer. You still need a number 2 starter. Are they going to go into the season thinking to themselves that Logan Webb's 1 and Robbie Ray coming off TJ is 2 and Justin Hicks, who should be in the bullpen, is 3, and then it's Harrison and Birdsong and I don't know who else, some of those other young guys. But, I mean, this can't be it, right? Or do you think it is?
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of been the mode the last few years. I guess you could go into the year thinking, how good are we really going to be? Let's not overextend ourselves and back ourselves into a corner. And then if things are good, you make a trade. I don't. You know better than me. What's there? I have a guess at what the minor league prospect rankings are. I'm sure it doesn't feel like they're high. My guess.
I mean, I don't know anything too. I'm not sitting there brushing over that stuff, but I do know this. That I think the other day, and I don't know how accurate it is, but somebody said they were last. So maybe that's inaccurate. Maybe they're not the worst farm system in the league. Oh, okay. I don't know what the hell Farhan was doing, man. I don't know what he was doing. But if somebody calls them last, then they're certainly not first. So maybe they're in the latter part of it. But anyway, I just wanted a quick thought on Verlander because I know we got a lot of stuff to do. So let's hit up on the 49ers.
He's throwing 94 at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it as long as the Giants realize it's a flyer and Buster Posey's not in a time machine thinking that, it's 10 years ago and he's getting the guy that pitched against him in the World Series in 2012 and he's going to say he's a number 2 because if you do that, you're going to be greatly disappointed and the season's over before it started. Hey, Willy Adames, cool, but what else? And I'm not even we can't even get into the offensive issues because we don't have enough time, but this can't be, hey, he's going to be our 2. This is a flyer, and if he makes, as you said, if he makes 17 starts and throws, I don't know, 110, 120 innings, I would think that's probably what a 42-year-old could do. I could be wrong. I'm often wrong. All right, let's hit up on the 49ers just because that's much more interesting. So I don't think it shocked anybody. Nick Sorensen gets fired yesterday by the 49ers. They like him, which is kind of weird, so they might make him the special teams coordinator, which could be awkward, but whatever. And then we hear this morning that Robert Saleh, who I thought it might take him a couple more years to get back in the hiring cycle, and everybody knows that the Jets are a dumpster fire, so it doesn't surprise me. But Jacksonville is going to interview him. Josina Anderson says another team's going to interview him, and that the 49ers are already interested. No, well, duh, of course they are. So how do you think this plays out? And then you're down there a lot. You talk a lot about all this stuff. What did you think of Nick Sorensen and the fact that they may even keep him on the staff?
I don't think the fact that they might keep him on the staff is weird at all. Like, to me, that is a sign, and I said this on Monday, like I expect him to be gone, but I expect them to try and keep him on the staff. I've seen it a lot. You see a lot in college with really well-established head coaches. Like, sometimes guys get fired because the front office wants the guy out and they force it on the coach. That's generally after an assistant coach has been around a lot longer. Sometimes there's too much noise and the coach is trying to say, like, a lot of firings are head coach, trying to save his ass. Kyle Shanahan has much more equity within the organization. So if he's going to make a change, it's because he thinks they need to make a change. They were in a difficult spot last year because they went to the Super Bowl and then decided to change their defensive coordinator. And it's
by the way, this is 4 in 4 years, right? This is 4 in 4 years. That's
yeah,
not good.
I call it 3 and 3 because but it is 4 and 4. Yeah.
But defense isn't offense, right? Like if you had 4, like Alex Smith, if you have 4 offensive coordinators in 4 years, your head's spinning because you've learned 4 different languages. On defense, I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's not offense. So if you have 4 and 4, but Kyle has kind of a philosophy that he wants to adhere to, which is the old Seattle style, then I'm not saying it's easy. I'd have to talk to Fred Warner, but it's not like offense. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and especially when Sorensen it's an internal promotion, right? So, but anyway, the point is, like, if you like a coach, I got no problem with it. You like a coach, you promoted him. he didn't do a great job as a coordinator, but you think he's a good, and we'll see what spot they have for him, DB coach. I'd be surprised if they just make him the special teams coach. But to me, that's not weird. Like, hey, I like the guy. Just because he wasn't a good defensive coordinator doesn't mean I have to eject him from the building. I still like him, So I got no problem with that aspect of it if that's how it plays out for Sorensen.
All right, I know we're going backwards here because they can't do it, but for a team that was in a Super Bowl window as they were, did you think it was weird in the first place that they hired a guy who had no experience? And I know that Staley was an overseer of all those kind of things, but the reason to me why Saleh is obvious and is the choice, somebody I was talking to yesterday said, well, Saleh's going to do a great job of this defense, and he's been gone, and then you're going to have 5 coordinators in 5 years. And I said, they're trying to win a Super Bowl now. They don't care what's happening 2-3 years down the line, and you're down there a lot. There is something in the air that I really can't describe. It's a bit of a desperation. It's kind of like me at the bar at 2 a.m. when the lights come on. There's just a bit of a desperation where it's like, we have to win a Super Bowl. So they're not thinking 2, 3, 5 down the year. They're thinking if Saleh's so great defensively that he can get a head coaching job after he's our defensive coordinator, great, because maybe we win a Super Bowl.
I think the thing you're sensing is the quest for 6.
But you can feel it, right? I mean, when you're down there, you feel it. I feel it. It's like, ooh, this is
song of the quest.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. You can just feel it, right? It is the quest for 6, but it's also like everybody's on pins and needles. That's how I feel. That's how I feel when I go down there. It's like, ooh, like John and Kyle are going to speak at 11:30 today. That should be pleasant.
I don't know. I think every time you think that Kyle's going to be uptight today, you watch him, you believe he's loose.
That's
like,
true.
Oh, maybe he's. I don't know. I think this is the environment that he was. He was reared in this environment around his dad, Mike. Who things were not always easy and cheery. So look, I mean. They have the easiest schedule in the league, and they host the Super Bowl this year. I don't view this year, 2025, as a rebuilding year. This is This is why I thought last year people were like, oh, this is the last dance. Like, no, it's an all-in year, and then it's an all-in year, and then it's an all-in year. That's what it is. If you're going to be one of the top franchises in the league, then every year is an all-in year. And I expect, we'll see what this Brock contract ends up being.
Yeah.
I think Brock was largely the same player he was last year, which is. You could take that as a compliment or as a shot. To me, it's not a shot. It's just a statement that he is 2 things at once. He's a top 15 quarterback, maybe a top 10 quarterback, and a guy that is like most guys outside of, the guys that are clear-cut future Hall of Famers, somewhat dependent on the players around him. Both of those things are true, and it's a team. So both of those things are true. But anyway, I expect Brock to. This is my early offseason take. I think Brock has a bounce back year. I don't think it's going to look necessarily like MVP numbers of last year, but I think it'll be close. I think the one thing you get from Brock is a high floor, in my opinion. And I think that makes a guy projectable, I think it makes him projectable. So there should be desperation. They're hosting the Super Bowl, and they have the easiest schedule in the league next year.
You just hit it. I think by the way, we haven't discussed this before, and we're not like a hot take show, and it's like you take this side, you take that side, but we could be, but we're not. But I agree with you 100% in that what you just said, in a bounce back year, because the national media is making it out that the 49ers are done. And you know what? When the national media does that, they've said it about the Patriots and the Spurs and the Warriors and all these different teams. Now the Warriors are washed now, but in 2022. But you look at it with the easy schedule, they're going to change defensive coordinators. Special teams cost them all season long. We know that. Maybe Brian Schneider's a nice guy, but that's the worst special teams performance I've ever seen, and I think the numbers back you up. I think that Kyle maybe needs an overseer. I don't even care if it's his dad, like somebody who says, Kyle, but what about this? Kind of like Mike McDaniel did, because they became stale and predictable at times. But to just your point on Brock Purdy, he just tried to do too much. He looked around himself and said, there's not enough here, even though there was, and said, geez, I got to throw this ball down the sidelines into bracket coverage against Jauan Jennings. And then after the game, he admits he didn't even see the play. And and they were 5 yards from a field goal, a missed field goal by Jake Moody, with 5:36 left in that game against the Rams that changed. Well, that was their last gasp. And so that to me was symbolic of him just trying to do way too much as a player, when in his first 2 years he was a point guard, he was a distributor, and he understood his role. And his great greatest strength was, I'm not going to hurt the team. And then he went away from that. But I think, to your point, he was forced to an extent.
Hey, you're playing with the lead less.
Right. So, I don't know. I agree with you. I think they're going to bounce back. Is there somebody in your mind from a DC standpoint, since, they're going to be asked about that today? Like, if it's not Saleh, and I don't know if this is a Rooney Rule thing, which is a complete joke, where, like, Jacksonville says, oh, Robert Saleh is a minority, let's talk to him. Now, I think it's probably a legit deal because everybody knows that the Jets are a complete joke. But if Saleh gets a head coaching job, then what? What do you think?
Ulbrich? I mean, you look back at it last year, it was kind of crazy how hard they tried to just hire Jeff Ulbrich away from the Jets while he was the defensive coordinator.
And it got public, too. That was weird, man.
It was so like, let's just trade for Jeff Ulbrich. And the Jets were like, hey.
He's like, we got a defensive-minded coach, but he still needs a DC.
I know you guys think we're going to suck, but the season hasn't started yet. I know you guys correctly think we're going to fire Robert Saleh. They should have just hired Robert Saleh last year.
Well, can I ask you about that? Because I want to know your personal preference on this. Because any job Robert Saleh takes, now maybe he's just that big of a football junkie, but it's offset. So he can make, I think I read this, I could be wrong, but most things on the internet are true. $20,000 a day he gets from the Jets if he just wanted to sit on a beach. And then if he takes a job this year, it's going to be offset. So let's just say he talks to the 49ers. They're not going to pay as much what the Jets head coaching job gets. So he still gets that money. And essentially he coaches the 49ers or is the defensive coordinator of the 49ers for free. Would you do that?
I hate that offset language.
I do too. It's the worst. Yeah, they can double dip.
Now, I guess they just take less because of the cap, like Russell Wilson did, like Kirk Cousins is going to. But they shouldn't bail guys out just because the guy gets another job.
You want to fire me, I want my full money, and then I should get paid to be the defensive coordinator of the Niners. Like, that's screwy. Who agreed to that?
What was the question?
I don't remember. But, I'm just saying, we talked about, other than Saleh, sorry, I'm making you ADD. Other than Saleh, if they don't get it, Ulbrich is there. I think the point was earlier in the week, there was no way Nick was going to survive anyway. But then you start looking, and Dennis Allen's a flatliner. I mean, we both know him. He's no good. Eberflus, I don't know. I get stuck because somebody's a bad head coach. But if Saleh's not there, Ulbrich's going to be a free agent. So I would think Ulbrich's going to be there because they're going to let everybody go with the Jets. So do you think it's either Saleh or Ulbrich? Is that what you think? And do you think one of those two are really good choices? I mean, Saleh obviously is.
I think Saleh's a great choice. Ulbrich's a fine choice. I mean, in theory, your offensive coordinator, play caller, head coach should know who the best defensive coordinators are.
Mm-hmm. What about
this is there is some pressure here on Kyle to get this one right.
Oh my God, is there ever?
Now, to answer your question, you're asking for a name. I'll give you an off-the-wall name that I brought up last year that I really liked. And this year was a little bit more of an up and down, but I still think the guy is an excellent defensive coordinator. But it would be this would fall in kind of a riskier category for Kyle, and that's D'Anton Lynn, who's Anthony Lynn's son.
Yep.
He's USC's defensive coordinator. He had 2 really good years at UCLA, revived UCLA. The irony was UCLA's defense this year with the 𝐬𝐽 was better than at USC's defense this year with D'Anton Lynn. But D'Anton Lynn now he's not like a huge rah-rah 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢 runaround guy. And I do think Kyle could use a strong personality, positive guy as the defensive coordinator. That's why Kyle and Wink, not that Wink Martindale's getting the job. I don't, him and Chris Kaczmarek, but that would be, if you went Wink Martindale, Kyle Shanahan, Aaron Rodgers, could you find 3 angrier a combination?
No, you
you wouldn't do that. That's too much anger. But anyway, D'Anton Lynn, he has a reputation, and I've talked to coaches on this. He's a very good individual teacher. He's a very good coordinator. His defenses create a lot of thinking and problems and matchup issues for offenses. SC did not, if you go look at the metrics, have a great year. Their personnel was their best player got hurt on defense, and their personnel was lacking. So I still think he's good. He's going to be. Yeah. He came from the Ravens. He was on the Ravens before he was with UCLA. He was in the NFL with the Ravens. So and I say this sincerely, and I think there's good reason for it. One thing that Kyle does that I I'm a fan of. He really values coaches' sons. He is one. I know people just view that as sort of silver spooning, but I think I've seen it. I've seen a lot of coaches. Like, I think there's something to that. Anyway, I've got a lot of Dan Lund stock, whether he's the Niners guy or someone else's guy, but I think that'd be an intriguing person to talk to.
All right, I'm going to ask you two more questions. One thing, just because you just made an amazing comment about it, is your defensive coordinator, if he's not fired up and screaming and yelling, I don't know why this is, but your offensive coordinator has to be calm and cool and collected, and whether you gained 80 or lost 80, it's just you got to have the same demeanor. But a defensive coach, especially because you've seen training camps a ton of times too, is they're just going bananas. And I love that about Saleh. It probably means nothing, but Nick Sorensen was a laid-back, cool guy. Like, I'd like to have a beer with Nick Sorensen, but I want a defensive coordinator that's just pulling his hair out and freaking out. 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭 does that. Saleh wasn't like 𝐾𝐨𝐧'𝐭, but he still had that personality, so I don't know if that matters. But the second thing is, as part of this makeover for the 49ers, new special teams coach, new defensive coordinator, which might be the old defensive coordinator, and all the things we talked about, that why we think they're going to have a bounce-back season. But does Kyle need somebody? I'm not saying he should not be the play caller. He should be the play caller. Some people have said he shouldn't do the personnel. I don't agree with that either. But in terms of having someone like Mike McDaniel as someone to bounce something off, and the reason I bring that up is because everybody said before McCaffrey came back, well, he's just going to solve everything in the red zone. Well, if McCaffrey's back, of course they're better in the red zone. But the major problem that a lot of people don't talk about, their third down and red zone defense was atrocious, and their offense third down and red zone was atrocious. So does Kyle, from an offensive standpoint, need to bring in somebody? And again, it can be like Staley was for the defense this year and McDaniel was before he left for Miami, which is somebody to just bounce things off of. Are we getting too predictable? Do you need – because I like that. I love having tons of people talking to you about, what we do for a living, and you take bits and pieces from everybody. Because as great as Kyle is, and he is, and people who say that he's should get fired are stupid, but does he need someone to bounce things off of? Because I like doing that. Even if you think you know everything, you certainly don't.
But I think he has that. I mean, I do think, to your point, the Mike McDaniel loss was probably a very significant one. Just given how long they'd been together and how good Mike was at the run game. And he was really, he was probably the premier specialist in the NFL at run game coordination. So that's a significant loss to have somebody that's been with you doing that same thing, just taking care of that side of things for as long as Mike McDaniel was, I think it's just really hard to replace that. So I think he lacks for people, offensive coaches. I mean, the Brian Griese's, those guys. I just think you're looking. It's hard to find. It's hard to find another guy who's been with you, to build up another guy who's been with you for 10 years. And then you lose Bobby Slow. You're just losing guys constantly.
That's a great point.
I think that's
it's hard to replace guys time and time again.
A true defensive head coach, where Kyle doesn't have to pop his head into the meeting room to figure out see how it's going. Like, that's the
huge.
solve. That's the solve.
Well, because we know it's famous.
Special teams. Oh.
Yeah, well, I think Eric Branch wrote about it today, who asked the longest questions in the universe about Kyle doesn't like special teams. I was there when they drafted Jake Moody, and he came into the room, and the first thing he said was, our draft room, and said, I wanted a running back. And then John Lynch kind of didn't like it either. Like, they don't like special teams. But to your point of defense, he wants someone who can say, you take the defense, you take the special teams, I'll be the offensive genius. And he just wasn't able to do that last year because he's constantly like, what special teams blunder is going to sink us today, and what special teams issue is going to – like, they're not forcing turnovers. They're giving up 30, 40 points. Anyway, you got to go. I can rant all day. You got to go.
That press conference was, I hope I don't have to watch kicking tape for another 10 years.
Oh, my God. I know. We could talk about that, too.
I think very highly of Kyle. I think he's one of the best coaches.
I do, too.
But you can't deny most of the best coaches care about special teams. And I do think the other thing that comes up is this is where, like, the Trey Lance trade hurts. Talent on special teams is also a depth issue when you're not good on special teams because you don't have good enough depth. So that's part of it too. But they just get tricked a lot, So I don't know. I don't know if he's got to spend more time dedicated because he's had now 2 special teams coaches that everybody knew their name, and there's only,
You don't want that.
How many special teams coaches do you know? You need, Bones Jones in Dallas.
Yeah, just because Papa had him on every day.
Bones.
Yeah, he would be on.
Who I hope never leaves the Cowboys.
Right.
Because it's and Dave Taub in Kansas City.
I mean, you're right.
April for a long time.
Yeah. And I felt bad. I mean, they're showing Brian Schneider every time Jake Moody misses a kick. It's like, what's he supposed to do? He's not a psychologist. I mean,
I do think the kicker and the special teams coach
different.
are two different. Like the special teams coach is coverage issues. The kicker missing kicks is like,
come on.
I don't know what you do.
Hey, I gotta let you go because you're very important. You got stuff to do. What's going on in your life? I don't mean personally. Although we failed because we don't have enough time to talk about your 110-degree wedding in Fresno, in which I wore.
82.
It felt like 110 in the sun.
You don't know.
You had no shade, but I'm not upset about it. No, I'm gonna disparage myself. I wore a dark blue pinstripe suit in Fresno. It's like that was a brilliant move. It's on me. It's not on you. What's going on? What kind of play-by-play? Where can we see you? What's going on?
I got a lot of college hoops. Next week, let's see. Iowa SC, Purdue, Washington, Iowa, UCLA, Wisconsin.
My Lord.
SC.
God, that's awesome. Look at that, man.
There you go.
Crushing it. And then what's the YouTube channel and everything so people can find you? Because it's amazing. It's an amazing channel. You've done a great job.
It's a fine channel.
No, it's really good. You've got a great community. I mean, you got either it's really good or you fooled like 25,000 people, which is possible.
We're trying to fool more.
It's amazing. All right, you got to go. I appreciate you hanging out.
You, brother.
It is good to see you. We'll talk to you down the line, man.
I haven't seen you this whole time. People wonder like, why doesn't Guy look at anything? It's because I can't see.
Yeah,
he's there.
It's my fault. I'm an idiot.
Okay.
All right, brother.
We'll
see you later, man.
Now?
Yeah, get out of here. Get out of here. That's Guy Haberman. He's out of here. And it is great that you and I could connect. Let me fix everything here because then I can just stare at you the whole time. There it is. I got a full screen now, and I'm going to just move a couple of things around here so I can see things a lot better. Welcome. And I didn't get a chance or an opportunity to do so to welcome everybody to the show as we always do. That was Guy Haberman. He's the greatest. If you don't know Guy, go over to his channel. He's being modest. He's one of the best around. When he came here from Fresno about a year or two after I was here, and we were all kind of with 95.7. If you don't know me, I was part of the original crew at 95.7, and then in 2016, I moved over to KNBR. 2019, Greg and I started working together. I was working Tolbert 16 to 19, and then recently they said my services were no longer desired, which is totally fine, and the same thing happened to Guy. But Guy is absolutely great, and if you haven't followed his YouTube channel, please do. At Guy Haberman on social media. He's awesome at play-by-play, very smart when it comes to all the sports around here, and he's just tremendous. College football in the fall, college basketball. The guy is absolutely unflappable, has tremendous hair to boot, which I'm very jealous of, but he is absolutely great. All right, that is that. So let's get to it, and let's get to a couple of things that I wanted to discuss with you in regards. Let's go back to the beginning here, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Let me just go to Verlander real quick. There, that's his numbers. You don't want to see that. You don't care. That's what he looks like as a Giant. I don't know if that does anything for you, but I saw that this morning, and everybody does those kind of things. And that's what he's going to look like if and when he pitches. I'm not down on the signing, and I don't want to come across as I am down on the signing of Justin Velrander because 100% I'm not. But my point on Verlander that I made with Guy, if you're just joining the show, is in name, it's tremendous. The reason why I went off yesterday and did an emergency show for about 30 minutes was the fact that Justin Verlander's going to the Hall of Fame. I'm not breaking any news. Also, I was in Detroit when he was there. He pitched the back half of a July 4th doubleheader. He's the number 2 pick out of Old Dominion, and we were all excited because I think the Tigers had won like 43 games the year before, and so they got Verlander as the reward for that. So everybody knows what he's done. He's an amazing pitcher. We've seen him here when he was with, obviously, the Tigers in 2012 and tons of different things. He's resurrected himself a million times. Last year, it was a neck injury. So those things are starting to catch up. Whether it's a Tommy John, now it's a neck thing. In 2022, he was 18-4 with a 175, pitched about 170 or so innings. And you're going, wow, at 39, this guy's awesome. But what we do is we look at those stats. Like I'll pop those up on the board again really, really quickly. We look at these numbers and we go, so if you're watching and you're not listening to the podcast, you can see 2022, 18-4 with a 175 in 28 starts and 175 innings. And you're going, well, geez, I'm looking at these numbers. It's not that long ago because 23 played for 2 teams in Houston and the Mets. And then last year was banged up with Houston. And even if you look back at the year he had in 2023, 13-8 with a 322 over 27 starts, that's only 2 years ago. But what starts happening, I think, I could be 100% wrong, but what I think starts to happen is that you start aging in dog years. And it's not that you're going to fall off a cliff pretty quickly, especially if you're a pitcher. So I comped him to Nolan Ryan. I'm not saying that's a perfect comp, but what I'm saying is that he's got an arm that has lasted and lasted and lasted. Certain guys, man, they just burn out and they're gone. Whereas Justin Verlander is one of those guys that's pitched forever. So would it surprise me if Justin Verlander had, I don't know, the year he had in 23? Not necessarily. Where he had, again, 28 starts? Wow. Would it surprise me if he had the year he had in 22? Absolutely. But I think the mentality has to be both from, and you can do whatever you want, but both from a fan perspective and a Giants perspective is you're taking a $15 million flyer. Now, you and I would love to have a $15 million flyer on us, but as far as baseball is concerned, it's a fair amount of money, but there is some upside there, so I understand it. He's going to pitch in a pitcher's park. That's going to help Justin Verlander, but it's all about health. So at age 42, what can you reasonably expect from Justin Verlander? Great name. A lot of people who are uneducated in baseball will say, wow, he's going to be awesome. He's going to be the number 2 starter behind Logan Webb. And so let's pop up the Giants rotation here, and they've already got Justin Verlander in there. So there you go. Logan Webb is 1, Ray is 2, Hicks is 3, Harrison is 4, Verlander is 5. I think they have it right. Now, if it were me running the Giants, and thank God it's not, Robbie Ray is not a number 2 coming back from TJ. Jordan Hicks should be in the bullpen. Could you imagine a 7th, 8th, and 9th of Jordan Hicks throwing about 102 miles an hour, and then you've straightened out Camilo Duvall and his mental issues because it's not a stuff issue with him. And then you're going to go with a closer, and Ryan Walker has earned that. So a 7, 8, 9, that would be a hammer bullpen in which you could play the game that a lot of teams are playing now, and especially that's something that you do in the playoffs where you go 6. Well, Logan Webb can go 6. You've got guys that can do that. But I always throw this theory past you, so I'm going to take this off the board so that you can see my ugly face, but you get what the rotation is. But I talk about this all the time where you've got the ifs. So if your team has less ifs, this is the theory, if your team has less ifs, the better your chances are at being good in any sport. So if I look at that rotation and I say Logan Webb, absolutely. But Robbie Ray is an if because he's still coming off Tommy John. Jordan Hicks is an if because he did that conversion to reliever to starter, and then the first half of the year he was great, and then he ran out of gas. So I'd rather have him as a 7th inning guy, but he might be forced to do that. And then Kyle Harrison is, look, great potential still. But as I always tell you, potential is a word that means you haven't done it yet, and it's often used in a positive sense, and it's not a positive word. It's a negative word. Potential. Boy, Lund, you have a lot of potential to do a good show today. That means I haven't done it. So hopefully at the end of the show you say, that was a good show. Lund's show sucked today, but he has the potential to do a pretty good show. Potential means you haven't gotten there yet. So Harrison has potential. Birdsong has potential. So to me, this is a long way of saying Verlander is great. Then Verlander is at the end, and I say Verlander could surprise me. But if you're a fan who thinks Justin Verlander is going to be great, I think you're going to be disappointed. If Buster Posey thinks Justin Verlander is our number 2 starter, I think he's going to be disappointed. I'd rather be like, whoa, and then be surprised at the end and tell you all that I'm wrong, which often happens, than say, let's go into the season as Justin Verlander as I 2. We're done. We don't need player X. Now, is Jack Flaherty perfect? No, but he's probably the best free agent out there. There are some guys that you could trade. I have let me see if I can get this because I have it in here. Let me see if I can pull this up for you. Giants rotation. Oh, here it is. I did this about 2 weeks ago, so this is obviously before some guys signed. But I got Justin Verlander in there. You got some free agents. Flaherty, Morton has already signed. Morton signed. Scherzer has not signed. There's Justin Verlander. There's no more free agents left. So Flaherty, as you can see on your screen there, 13-7 with a 3.17, and more importantly, 162 innings pitched, which is what they need. They need innings. I wouldn't mind Flaherty. He's from Southern California, so he's a West Coast guy. Maybe he's asking for too much money. I don't know. And then on the trade front, Castillo doesn't match up with he's really, really good with the Mariners, but he doesn't match up with the Giants because the Mariners have the longest playoff drought in baseball right now. So what the Mariners want, if they're going to trade Luis Castillo because they have such a good rotation, they could spare him, but it's because they want to bat. And they don't want to bat that's in the system of the Giants, which there aren't many. They want to bat right now because they want to get into the playoffs. So if they're going to trade Castillo, they're going to trade him for a bat that is ready now. LaMonte Wade Jr. is not getting that done. Mike Yastrzemski's not getting Luis Castillo, so that's doubtful. Dylan Cease, will the Padres trade in division? Probably not. I wanted him last year. I was screaming and yelling for it. The third one on that list is Sonny Gray. His contract is backloaded. I really like Sonny Gray. He dropped off a little bit from 23 to 24, but I like him. Not a huge Pablo Lopez guy, but not bad. And then the pie in the sky one that's not going to happen, there's Framber Valdez. You'd have to give up Bryce Eldridge, and that wouldn't be enough. So it's kind of slim pickings. And could some of those trades happen? Sure, but it doesn't seem to me that they are right now. St. Louis, maybe, for example, would say, okay, we'll eat a little bit of Sonny Gray's money, but you got to give us a better prospect. Free agents, it's Jack Flaherty or nothing. You're not signing Scherzer and Verlander. So that's kind of the outlook. If you've got a guy, I'm going to look at the text line right now, or the chat line right now. If you've got a guy, that's cool. I just don't see a guy out there that is obvious for the Giants outside of Flaherty. Flaherty had great success in St. Louis, bounced back last year in Detroit. Unfortunately, helped the Dodgers win a World Series that we're not going to talk about, but he was good there. I don't know that they win it without him. He pitched very well. So I would think he's probably asking for too much money. That's just logic. Like, Flaherty's probably asking for too much, and the Giants are like, please. But if you told me that, Webb, let's go back up to the Giants starters again, you probably remember because it hasn't been that long, but let's just play around with this a little bit. So if I said to you it was Logan Webb and then Jack Flaherty and then Robbie Ray at the 3, Hicks goes to the bullpen, Harrison, Verlander, Birdsong, and, Hicks could do spot starts, whatever, because he was 5 and fly last year. So then I'd feel a lot better about things. I don't know what Flaherty you're getting, but back to my original thought of if you have ifs. Logan Webb is in the bank. Robbie Ray if, Jordan Hicks if, Kyle Harrison if, Justin Verlander if, Birdsong if. And that's not great for your starting rotation, especially when you're in a division like this, in which the Diamondbacks just signed Burns. Snell, unfortunately, just went to the Dodgers. They've got a bunch of pitching. This is a tough division. The Padres, even though they have Dylan Cease and Michael King and guys like that, they could probably use pitching. And then probably you're asking yourself about, 𝐸𝐿 which there's going to be a telltale here. And I don't know the guy's name, but I know one of the top prospects in the international pool, which is the money that you're going to use, not to get overly complicated, but it's the money you're going to use to try to sign 𝐸𝐿. For most teams right now, it's between $5 and $7 million. So it's not like he's going to get a ton. We know the story. If you don't, go read up on it because I'm not going to bore everybody with it. But he's going to get between $5 and $7 million. The telltale for the Giants will be they're rumored to be signing this really young 16, 17-year-old shortstop, whatever he is. And he's like, I think, the second best international prospect. Well, if they use, and the rumor is it's $2.5 million. If they use $2.5 million of like their 5.1, clearly 𝐸𝐿 not coming to the Giants and they're moving on. Now, could he be? I don't know. A lot of great stories about 𝐸𝐿. I won't get too deep into it now because we have a lot of Niners stuff that we need to hit on, but it is interesting. And if you pop that, I'm not going to pop it up again because you're bored of that graphic. But if you put 𝐸𝐿 at 2 at the age of 23, again, now you're cooking with gas. So part of you says, well, they don't want Jack Flaherty because they're going to get 𝐸𝐿. Nobody knows where he's going to go. So that is my thought on Justin Verlander. Before I move on to 49ers stuff, let me make sure that everybody is cool with that and we're done with that. Hi, Smiley Dan. Hi, Douglas Paul Hurd. Very nice to see you. He says, Verlander has taken the ball in the biggest games. What a role model. That's good. That's a great point. I'm not, like I said, I don't want to come across as that. I am not angry or upset or anything with the Justin Verlander signing. It's $15 million. The only downside to it is some of those guys I just showed you. Like, are you going to pay Justin Verlander 15 and then turn around a backloaded contract? I think with Sonny Gray, I could be wrong, and I'm too lazy to look it up right now, so maybe you could help me out. But I think it's like $2 and $65 that's left. So I'm not an anti-Sonny Gray either, but if he's at $30 million and then you have Verlander, $45 million, are the Giants going to do that? Doesn't sound very Giant-like to me. So that's $15 million is not nothing, but it's also not a ton of money. But does it take you out of signing or trading or something like that for a big-name pitcher? Maybe Buster says, this is it. This is our staff. I would hope that it wasn't. And then everybody wants to get into Pete Alonso one last time as I'm looking at the text. He's not coming here. It just doesn't sound very Giant-like. And I was having this conversation with my old producer, Walter, yesterday on his great YouTube channel, Passion for the Pastime, which you should be following. And the thought process is you've got to think of the other side sometimes. And I'm guilty of this just as much as fans are. So what I do is I try to conjure up a trade in my mind. It could be the Warriors or the Giants or the Niners or anybody across the league. And we are just programmed to think my team. So when, for example, I know the Warriors and Jimmy Butler, my team, and then you give them a bunch of crap back that matches the salary and you go, that should work. Well, the other GM's getting fired if they do that deal. And Pat Riley's not stupid. I'm just using Butler as an example because he's out there. But from a baseball standpoint, we could do it from a baseball standpoint. You know, you trade for pitcher X and you give him a bunch of junk. Well, think about the other side of things. So let's think of Pete Alonso, and it's not a trade, it's a free agent signing. And then give me 90 seconds, and then we'll get into a lot of Niners stuff. But from Pete Alonso's standpoint, okay, the Giants, a 1-year deal with Pete Alonso? Yes, please. Because then Bryce Eldridge gets another year in the minors. If he's any good, he comes up, he's your first baseman. Man, that's great. And Pete Alonso gives you a right-handed stick in the middle of the lineup. Him and Adames? Wow. That's awesome. Great. Good job, Buster. I love you. Now I'm Pete Alonso. Let's think from his angle. All right, I'm going to be forced to sign a 1-year deal. Where can I hit a bunch of home runs and then go back on the market next year? And I'd like to win, too, because if he could hit 40 home runs, 50 home runs, be part of a winning team, that's going to be a lot of money for Pete Alonso. So where can Pete Alonso do that? In this ballpark? Not necessarily. Now, Pete Alonso could hit the ball out of any ballpark, but it's one of the harder ballparks, as we all know, to hit home runs in. So there's not a lot of teams that need first baseman. There's not a lot of teams with the financial wherewithal, even for a 1-year high AAV contract, average annual value, to get Pete Alonso. The Giants could. They just don't often act like it. Now, last year they went out and spent a bunch of money, but then Farhan undid a lot of that. They traded Jorge Soler. Blake Snell leaves town. So he spent a bunch of money, and the year before he spent money on a bunch of garbage that's gone as well. So is Buster Posey walking in and getting $182 million for Willy Adames? Do they still have more checks to write for Buster Posey? It seems to me that they don't. Now, again, I could be 100% wrong. We all know this, that when you start a new job, that's the best time to ask for stuff. You know, you've just been hired as some sort of an executive, and you're going, well, you know, I said in the job interview that I needed this, this, and this, and they go, no problem. 3-6 months into this thing, a year later, they're like, get the hell out of here. And they start firing people, taking away assets from you. So maybe right now Buster Posey is in that honeymoon period, and that's how he got Willy Adames. But does that mean that he walks back in and said, hell, they gave me a bunch of money last time. Hello, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Now I want to spend it on Corbin Burns. What else you got? Now I want to spend it on Pete Alonso. Absolutely not. Now I want to, they gave him one big one. And so it doesn't look like they're going to give him any more. Again, could be wrong. Flaherty could be asking for too much money. Maybe they think they're going to get Suzuki. My overall point is this might be the Giants. They could make a move, but that wouldn't be very Giant-like to go out and give out a bunch of money to a pitcher. A short-term thing would be great for the Giants on Pete Alonso. Would Pete Alonso want that? I would doubt it. All right, that's the final thought today on the Giants. I want to see 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽, says Kyle. Yeah, I'd love to give you a scouting report. I've seen video of him. I just don't know. Now, the Giants do. I said this was my final thought, and then you just got me going again, Kyle, which is fine. Now, maybe the Giants think to themselves, hey, you know what? Mason Black is going to be a lot better. We don't need another guy. And this 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽 kid, you guys have no idea. And they've been watching Kyle Harrison, and they've been watching Birdsong, and I like Birdsong a lot. I've said this story a lot. He was out on the patio with us last year. The kid is very mature, very smart. I think all these guys are going to be great. But it also goes back, as weird as this sounds, it goes back to my thought on Justin Verlander. If you rely on old guys and young guys, you're going to be disappointed because they're going to be uneven. That's why you're trying to, in any sport, I'm going to be Captain Obvious here for a second, but you're trying in any sport to have, when you're in a championship window, to have the players, as many as you can, in the prime of their career. I know I'm not breaking news here, but your goal is to try to have a bunch of guys in the prime of their career and you go out and win championships. If you look at any of the championships for the Bay Area teams through the years, go back and look at the ages of the players. They're in the prime of their career, and you can hold that for X amount of years. But right now, the pitching staff has Logan Webb, who is in his prime, Robbie Ray, who's probably past it, Verlander, who's past it, and then a bunch of young guys. What do young and old guys do? They're inconsistent. So they're very similar in that way. So the Giants could be really excited about their young guys, But they're going to be really careful like they were last year, which Verlander could hopefully give you 100 to 120 innings, so now you don't have to push those guys as much. But I just get a little nervous walking into a season saying, I'm going to count on this rookie, this rookie, this rookie, and this old guy. Prime of career guys, and they just don't have enough of those guys. Makes sense? Duvall spin rate, HR, good to see you. Sports Girl for Life, love to see you. I was on the other YouTube channel for over 30 minutes. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. That's on me, and I apologize. Nathan, if Kate Upton is signing autographs, I'll buy season tickets. Look at you people. Joy P is here today. Love seeing everybody. True Blue Forever, nice to see you. Pine Needle, Hurley Bird, everybody is here today. Really appreciate you guys hanging out. Is that enough Giants talk for the day? I think it is. I think that's enough Giants talk for the day. All right, let's get to a little bit, and I do have some fancy stuff here. Let's get to a few things in regards to the 49ers. At 11:30 today, so in about 2 hours, and I'm going to head down there. So in about 2 hours, John and Kyle are going to speak to the media for the final time. I don't expect there to be any revelations. That's not generally what they do. How their dynamic works is John Lynch is the positive guy. Kyle Shanahan is the realist. Kyle Shanahan will have a bit of a beard and a big Starbucks in his hand, and that's how this will proceed. So will we learn some stuff? We do sometimes. We do. We learn some things sometimes, but not generally a lot in these kind of things. Hey, John, who's going to be the defensive coordinator? Nick Sorenson did a really, really good job, and we love Nick, and we'd like to keep him on the staff. There was a lot of injuries this year that really, really hurt us, and we're going to bring in the best possible candidate. Guys, is Robert Saleh a consideration? Yes. Have you talked to Robert Saleh? We plan to. I can probably do the entire press conference right now. I know what it's going to be. Yeah, are you going to bring Dre Greenlaw back? Dre was hurt this year, and we'd like to bring Dre back, but we're going to have to look into that in the offseason. What's going to go into signing Brock Purdy to a contract, and how is that going to affect your salary cap? Well, it's really tough dealing with the salary cap, but Brock has earned this money. We think Brock is going to bounce back, had some issues this year, and injuries affected our offense. And we think Brock's going to be great, and he's the future at the position, and we're really excited for him to lead this team going forward. Yeah, that's is Jake Moody coming back? We're really big fans of Jake. There's a reason why we took him in the third round. He's got all the talent in the world. We just got to get his head back on case, and we really think that Josh Moody has a great career ahead of him. A couple of hiccups here this year, but we really believe in Jake. We think he's going to be a really good kicker for a long time for this organization. That's just what they're going to do. They're not going to come out and go, all right, guys, we're holding court. Jake sucks. Purdy's overrated. We're not going to give him $50, $60 million. My God, you see that throw in the Rams game? Dre Greenlaw played half a year. I mean, if he wants 3 or 4 years, he's going to have to go get it somewhere else. Like, they're not going to all of a sudden take truth serum and tell you everything that they're going to do in the offseason. So that's kind of what's going on. But here's a couple of things. I don't need to be negative, but here's a couple of things that's going on right now as far as the 49ers in before the 11:30 happens. So this is Jacina Anderson, as you can see on your screen. She says, just in, I'm told Robert Saleh's first head coaching interview with the Jaguars is Tuesday. Another head coaching interview expected thereafter. 49ers are also expected to make him an offer at defensive coordinator. Now, this is as obvious as it could be that they're going to go and talk to Robert Saleh. He was a perfect fit. A lot of those guys are still around. He's that energy guy that I really like. He's a yin and yang for Kyle. They're close, and that makes a ton of sense. I thought, and it looks like I could be wrong in this sense, I thought that Robert Saleh was going to have to rehab for a couple of years like coaches do. Not literally rehab, but just rehab his reputation. But the Jets are such a mess, such a dumpster fire, such a joke. Thank you, Aaron Rodgers. That those in the NFL know that that wasn't Robert Saleh's fault, and so he could be a head coaching candidate after flaming out in New York. A lot of people were shocked, not shocked when he was fired, but a bit surprised, and they knew that it wasn't his fault. So because of that situation, he could bounce back and be a head coach this year. Or a lot of teams could say, hey, take some time off. Jacksonville, would they hire him? A lot of times if it's your first hire, like Mike Vrabel, I think is going to go to the Patriots or the Raiders. Some of these things make sense. I would talk to Robert Saleh too. I hope it's not just a Rooney Rule thing because Robert Saleh is a minority. Let's go talk to minority Robert Saleh. And I feel really bad for guys who are going through that, the Rooney Rule. And we've seen this with Luis Riddick with ESPN. Luis Riddick is absolutely great. But I I have a feeling that there are certain teams who often will talk to him about the GM job so that they can get by that rule, and I think that's horrible. So I don't think that's what is happening with Robert Saleh. I hope it's not happening. But to just go back to what Josina Anderson is saying there, all right, Saleh's going to go talk to the Jags. He's an impressive guy in person. I could see him wooing somebody and go, wow, this guy's good, because he is. And then she says there's another head coaching job. Now, should he not get either of those, then the 49ers are expected to make him an offer to become the defensive coordinator. And as we were talking about with Guy Haberman, you're all of a sudden you're looking at this whole thing, and we can take that down now, and you're saying, okay, will Robert Saleh take this gig? Does Robert Saleh think that he can turn this defense into something so that then maybe next year or the year after he can be a viable head coaching candidate? I think that's probably how it's going to go, that he's not going to go Jets to Jags or whatever other team. I think he's going to need a year or two to be the defensive coordinator. And then another person told me the other day, they said, well, geez, if you get Robert Saleh and you have a great defense and you have a lot of success, then he's going to leave and it's going to be 5 defensive coordinators in 5 years. And I said, if Robert Saleh does a great job, a good enough job to resurrect this defense, which was 26th in the league this year and terrible, I think they were like 29th or something against the run and all these different problems they had. And this has been going on like a year and a half. This was Steve Wilks and Nick Sorenson and all the powers that be with the 49ers. If he can do that, then they're a Super Bowl contender again. So I don't care. I don't care if Robert Saleh leaves after a year because he's such a hot candidate and it's 5 coordinators in 5 years. I don't care, because that means that the defense actually is much, much better. And for the last couple of years, and I'm including last year as a Super Bowl team because the second half of the year they weren't very good, I don't care if Robert Saleh leaves after a year because that means he was great. Some people are like, oh, we got to have a guy who's going to stay here for a long time. I don't care. And to Guy Haberman's point when he joined us earlier, that's part, and I haven't even mentioned this before, and that's why I love having people on, because you get the light bulb on your head and you're like, oh my God, that's a great point. Which is, they've had so many offensive and defensive minds leave over the last number of years that people don't talk about. It's hard to continually replace guys, but that's what they've done. Tons of guys on the offensive side of the ball, tons of guys on the defensive side, obviously with the defensive coordinators, but it's also position coaches and all these different guys. And so not only are you getting different messages as far as the players are concerned, and yeah, you're running the same offenses and defenses, but everybody has a different style. But I don't think 5 coordinators or 4 coordinators now in 4 years defensively. Now, offensively, your head would be spinning like Alex Smith was back in the day. It's like, oh my God, another offensive system? I got to learn a completely new language. Defense isn't quite that way, but it is coming from a different guy. So look, number 1 on my list, part of that whole ramble right there, the number 1 guy on my list is Saleh. I don't know enough about 𝐿𝐵RIC. I told you this yesterday. I think Dennis Allen's a flatliner. Guy brought up a couple of guys from college. So if it's not Saleh, then maybe it's 𝐿𝐵RIC, because they requested to talk to 𝐿𝐵RIC last year when he was with the Jets. And the Jets are like, what are you, high? We need a defense coordinator. Why would I let you do that? So that's that thought. Let me throw up a couple of things, because I said that I would play this yesterday, this Brock Purdy stuff, and then we'll hit up the Warriors before we get out of here as well. And I want to get your thoughts. I'll get back out to the chat line. And by the way, at JohnLundRadio on all of your social media forums. In fact, we run the show live on X now, at JohnLundRadio. So if you got to run or get in your car or something like that, just take us with you. Like, you don't have to sit. Take us with you and do that. We're on YouTube as well, at JohnLundUnleashed. We're on Twitch, at JohnLundUnleashed. And please make sure you subscribe. And we have a podcast, so after the show, again, you can take us with you, and then you don't have to look at my face, which is probably a positive. So if you go and go to any podcast, so Apple, Spotify, any of those places, you can subscribe there. So please do. All right, the plug is over. Let's talk a little bit more about 49ers-wise. So I told you I would play this yesterday. We were having some audio issues, which I believe we have fixed. So just because they're going to be talking about these guys, let me just throw a couple of things out. First of all, the most interesting guy, and you may have heard this by now, but I just want to opine on it, please. The most interesting guy in the locker room afterwards, because I didn't know. So we're sitting here, and this goes back to the fact that we think these are robots that fall out of a locker and just play their sport. They don't have any emotions or families, or they're not human beings or something like that. And Mooney Man Ward, who didn't have a great season, but you could see why. Any trauma that's going on in your life, it absolutely 100% affects you. Like, I love doing this show, and it's my place of solitude. And then after, outside of the hours of this, I can be a dumpster fire, and it's fine. I can focus on this. But when you're Mooney Man Ward and you had a daughter die and he says, well, I'm going to let you hear what he says, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
I'm in California, you know what I'm saying? I had a lot of great times, but, you know, the worst thing that's ever happened to me, that's probably going to ever happen to me, happened in California, you know what I'm saying? So, again, just bring up bad memories, you know what I'm saying? Like, every time I get on the plane, come back to California, Santa Clara, San Jose, show up here, it's just bring up bad memories, you know what I'm saying? I go through that every day, you know what I'm saying? I go home every night by myself because, you know, my girl, she don't want to come back to California because of what happened. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard being alone, and, you know, she's my strength right now. I need her, you know, so her not being able to be around me in California would be tough, but, you know, like I said, stuff can change, you know, I can get stronger. You know, probably get over that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we'll see.
Would you rather be in Dallas, Texas, some place where you're real close?
I wouldn't, I mean, honestly, yeah, I would love to be home around close to my family, being in the South, that would be amazing. But, like I said, being with the 49ers would be amazing. You know, if I'm able to overcome a lot of that trauma, you know, I get PTSD a lot, you know what I'm saying? I be throwing up, waking up in the middle of the night all the time, sweating, stuff like this. So, you know, it's tough, but, you know, we'll see how it goes. It's going to be interesting for sure.
All right, so there is Moody Man. Did we get some echo in there? Were you saying that? I thought we fixed all that kind of stuff. Was there a delay and an echo there? I apologize on that. So if you didn't hear it, and if there was a bunch of echo and a bunch of weird stuff, I guess we're still having issues. But what Moody Man said there was he got PTSD. He got PTSD, and his girlfriend can't even come to California. So to me, and I won't play audio because you're going to get a bunch of echo, and we don't want to do that. But Ward's not going to come back. We can see that. Brock Purdy is going to be addressed today at 11:30. Lots of things are going to be talked about. We've talked about the defensive coordinator, special teams coach. We were a little bit ahead of that on the show. There was just no way that Nick Sorensen was going to survive that kind of stuff. So I'll make sure that we clean this up. We thought we had that cleaned out. The other thing that was really important, I thought, beyond the Brock conversation was George Kittle. We've talked about that a little bit as far as George Kittle coming back. And I think just his leadership was great. And I've told you this a million times on George. I just think there was a time with this regime that said, how long are we going to keep George Kittle? And George Kittle is great, and George Kittle is a great leader, and George Kittle was the best tight end in the league. And I don't want to hear about Bowers, Laporta, all these other guys, or Kelsey. They were all great, but he really stepped up this season. And I hope that the 49ers, there's so much talk about an extension for Brock Purdy, and there should be. And there's so much talk about Dre Greenlaw, and there should be. But George Kittle's up in a year as well, and I got to believe, especially because the position is not paid like a premium position still, that George Kittle is going to stay here long term, given what he displayed this last year. And since we talked about Dre Greenlaw, a lot has come out about Dre Greenlaw, and that's going to be one of the first questions that are asked. But if you listen to the show, watch the show with any regularity, you know that we were probably on this, a week, 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. I know how the 49ers operate and think, and they want Dre Greenlaw back. And they want Talanoa Hufanga back, because you saw when Dre was back for like half of a game, but you just saw the energy. There's something there that is kind of indescribable as far as Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw are concerned. They just make everybody around them better because of their energy. They have a ton of it. It permeates throughout the entire defense. So yeah, Dre Greenlaw is great when healthy, and Talanoa Hufanga is great when healthy. But when the 49ers have said goodbye to players who they still really liked, in the case of like an Eric Armstead, or even go back to Jimmy, and I know Jimmy missed the throw and all these different things, but the 49ers get frustrated after a while about guys who can't stay healthy, and that was part of the frustration a couple of years ago with George Kittle was, hey, we just made you the highest paid tight end, and while it's not premium money compared to the rest of the positions in the league, we're getting frustrated that you can't stay healthy. Now, I think it's ironic because the 49ers ask you to bust your ass, and they want to play hard, and they want to play physical, and then they get mad when players get hurt. Elijah Mitchell's a perfect example. Ever since he was a rookie, they thought maybe he could play through things that he and then his agent got involved didn't think. And it's like, well, you're asking me to be a one-cut running back and get up the field and run over people, and then you're getting pissed off when I'm hurt. But that's just organizations. If we're going to pay you, we want the best ability to be availability. You've heard that a million times. So Dre Greenlaw, let's go back to him for just a second and stay on point. The reason I bring up Dre Greenlaw is he played a half of a game this year. And as great as he is, he was asked, I brought this up yesterday, the day before, he was asked by somebody in the locker room, what do you want for Christmas before the holidays? And he said, money. And he kind of laughed, but he wasn't kidding.
And so he's thinking to himself, well, I have earned this, and he has. But playing half a game after the worst injury in sports does not inspire a lot of confidence from the 49ers, who are very weary. A lot of teams are too, but especially the 49ers. As a player gets older and more injury prone, they're not really excited to pay said player. So Dre Greenlaw's thinking to himself, all right, if someone else will pay me, and someone might be so desperate's the wrong word, but someone might want Dre Greenlaw and say, we think he can get over it. Our doctors checked it. He's going to be fine. Even though he didn't play the large majority of the season, we will give him a multi-year contract and guaranteed money. I don't know that the 49ers will. I think that they'll go to his agents and say, look, it's a 1-year make-good deal. We'll pay Dre in the future, but he's got to prove off this Achilles that he can stay healthy. And that's what I think the 49ers will do. And if he doesn't want to accept that, or someone else will step up, then he's going to be a former 49er. We said that a couple of weeks ago. Everybody kind of got wind of that now, and I'm sure that's going to be a major talking point today when John and Kyle meet the media at 11:30. The problem with that thinking is, and this is where I think Dre Greenlaw has some leverage, we saw the guys that replaced him. D. Winters, better as the season went on, but he was like a chicken with his head cut off for a long time. It was like, where's this guy going? Jalen Graham's a nice guy. I like him, but he's not the replacement for him. They tried a number of different guys. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles is a special teams player. So you got Fred Warner basically trying to run all over the place because he just doesn't have a Robin to his Batman in the middle of the field. And the 49ers, when they've had a great defense, you don't need me to tell you that, Willis and Bowman, and Warner needs some help. Well, you could say, I'm going to go out and get him some help, but they need interior defensive line help. They need an edge rusher. They need offensive line help. I don't know that they want to go out and make linebacker a priority. So it's going to be a real big discussion point today and throughout the offseason that Brock is going to be the headliner. No doubt. He's the lead singer of the band. We're going to talk about Brock incessantly all offseason until he gets a deal done. He's number one on the list. Yeah, defensive coordinator. Yeah, special teams guy. But as far as players go, Dre Greenlaw is probably second on the list. You'd like to get Kittle extended. There's going to be a lot of news this year, so at 11:30, that's going to be really interesting to talk about. All right, let me get to before I move on, because I am going to mention the Warriors a little bit. And again, I always ask this question because I want you to get as much out of the show as you possibly can. Do you want to move on to the Warriors? Do you want to continue to talk about the Niners? Do you think that there's something there that we need to discuss further? Did I not hit something that you were interested in? Let me see there. Most of the good point by Daryl. Most of the players on the Niners are injury prone. I don't know that I'd call them injury prone, but again, they play such a physical style that guys are going to get hurt, and it's the NFL on top of that. And we're coming off a season in which all of us are like, damn, could they have more injuries? And they're due some good luck. And generally speaking, don't hold me to this, generally speaking, injuries even out from year to year. So let's hope. But that's generally what happens. All right. I think people are good. Everyone's good. Any more questions, comments, thoughts before I move on quickly and shortly? All right. Okay, so we're good. All right, let's move on to the Warriors really quickly. And again, it's not as big of a story with all the stuff going on with the 49ers, and people, I think, are getting frustrated by this story every single day. So let me move down a little bit. I think this typifies the Warriors lost last night, if you didn't see it, 114-99 to the Heat. They weren't really in the game. They got blown out in the first half. They were never really in the game. They're coming off an overtime back-to-back in Sacramento, so they should have been dog-tired, but they weren't. And they don't have Jimmy Butler, and we know the reason for that. So this pretty much typifies where the Warriors on your screen are right now. That's Steph Curry. Like, are you kidding me? What in the hell is going on here? And so I was thinking about how I was going to attack this, because what are we going to do? Every single day talk about how bad the Warriors are, or if they're going to trade Kuminga for somebody, or if it's Jimmy Butler or Zion Williamson or LeBron James or whoever the hell that you want to throw up there. We've tracked over that ground a lot. But this kind of hit me as I looked at the standings today. You look at the standings this morning, and there are the Warriors again at 18-18, 10-10 at home, 8-8 away, 14-13 in the conference. I mean, that's mediocre, as Richard Sherman would say. That's mediocre. And I started thinking to myself, all right, when the Warriors were a championship team, so you've seen the standings, you get my point. They're 10th. They're 18-18. So we'll put that graphic away for a minute. So I started thinking to myself, how are we going to attack the Warriors? How are we going to discuss the Warriors today? I don't want to sit there and be a negative guy every single day. But then it just popped into my head that when the Warriors were championship contenders, that's just how we looked at the Warriors. right? We just looked at them as championship contenders. They're going to be, near the top of the West. Even if they're second or third, they can still win a championship. They're in the window. Awesome. So that's how we viewed the Warriors. And we really, because Steph Curry is around, and I could be 100% wrong, you tell me, but this is just how I was thinking about it. So, you see Draymond Green, you see Steph Curry, you see Steve Kerr. There's enough guys around still where in your mind you're still thinking that that's the team, and because they won a championship in 2022, kind of out of nowhere, you kind of think in your mind that that's still the Warriors, that they're still a championship contender. They can still pull it out. Steph is still that great, and he is, but the rest of the team can't throw it in the ocean. I mean, you saw last night, and I could throw up the box score from last night, but it's depressing and pathetic. Outside of Steph Curry, they couldn't throw it in the ocean. So let me just pop up the graphic one more time of the NBA standings so that this can get into your head too. But this is what the Warriors are now. So we need to kind of change our mentality, and maybe you already have, and I'm just slow, and I'm late to the party. But the Warriors are a 10th place team. They're a play-in team. Will they move up to 7 where the Clippers are? Will they stay down to 10 where they are? Would they even fall back where the Kings are, who have had a little bit of hot streak since Doug Christie came aboard? If you're listening or watching from Sacramento, they're 18-19. They've played well lately, so maybe they could jump them. You're looking at the Suns in the 12th spot. They're trying to get Jimmy Butler. They're trying to push Bradley Beal out of town. I mean, they've got some weird things going on in the Valley of the Sun, so maybe they could pop up. But I looked at that and I just said, let's start looking at the Warriors for what they are. Yeah, Steph Curry's around. Yeah, Steve Kerr's around. Yeah, Draymond Green's around. Yeah, they got off to a 12-3 start somehow, but let's do a little bit of math. What's that? 6-15 since? That's horrible. 6-15. Somebody do the math on that. What's the winning percentage on 6-15? I could do it, but I'm laid back in my chair relaxing. So let me take the graphic off, but just keep that burnt into your mind that the Warriors are a 10th place team. They're a play-in team. They're 7-10. Hell, they could miss the playoffs this year because Phoenix is right behind them and Sacramento's playing well. And you saw the Spurs ahead of him on that graphic. And Chris Paul's there kind of making a bit of a difference. He's not what he was, but Victor Wembanyama he's a superstar. He's great. So he's starting to emerge. There's been rumors that nobody else wants Jimmy Butler. So people are saying Jimmy Butler to the Spurs. And that makes sense because the Spurs have a bunch of young talent and kind of redundant talent. And they could trade that talent to the Heat, and then Greg Popovich is not going to put up with any shit from Jimmy Butler. He's the perfect coach. Like, look, dude, not happening. And Jimmy Butler could get in line with the Spurs, and all of a sudden a Butler, Paul, Wembanyama, still some young players. All of a sudden the Spurs are better than the Warriors. So my overall point is that's what they are now. They're a play-in team. They're 7-10 because there's everybody every night seems to write an article or talk about a thing or ask Steph, and now the two timeline thing is back in vogue and people are talking about that again, which is stupid, but it just keeps coming back. So there's this vicious circle like a hamster on a wheel that continuously is talked about. Who can they trade for that's going to make a difference? Nobody, as Jim Harbaugh once a million times said. Nobody. Jimmy Butler's not coming. You could go get Vucevic, the big center from the Bulls. They need a stretch big. That's probably what they need. So he comes. You got to give up salary. He's making $20 million, so whoever you take off the roster, you're going to lose something of your depth there. Maybe you can fool the Bulls into GP2 and some money and and Looney. I doubt it, but maybe you could. And then that's a big win. And that's what teams do. They rip off teams that are really bad, and then all of a sudden they keep themselves in a window or whatever. But assuming that I don't know that deal's out there, and the other ones that we've talked about, LeBron is that's not happening. So there's not a single player, and I like Zion Williamson. He came back last night and did this windmill dunk, and I was like, I'd like that guy. But he's always hurt. But still, I think Zion Williamson could bridge the gap from where they are now to where they could be in the future and not be bad. And if he could stay healthy, he could make a difference. But they don't seem to be very interested in him. So they've talked about it for a number of years. What's wrong? What's wrong? Why can't you shoot? Why can't you do this? How come you're not? Everybody's comparing the Warriors to themselves in 2022 when they won a championship, to themselves when they were in that window and the most dominant team in basketball. And maybe people get fooled because Joe Lacob keeps bringing it up. We're going to win at all costs. You're a great businessman. There is no question about it. Steph Curry did this, but you helped turn the Warriors from a $450 million franchise to a $1.9 billion franchise. You did that. You did that. You're the majority owner of the team, so you deserve a ton of credit. But where I think Joe Lacob goes wrong is he thinks like in business, it's just different. It's sports, and there's peaks and valleys. And right now, you're kind of in that place that nobody wants to be in. And if you're watching on the on any of our platforms, you can see this. If you're listening on the podcast, you're like, what the hell are you doing, Lund? But I'm doing this thing middle. They're in the middle. Nobody wants to be in the middle because you want to be really bad, and so that your fan base can say, all right, you've given us all these great years, and the only place you can generally get great players, I mean, in the NBA, the draft is like 5 players long, maybe 6 or 7 players long, but everybody goes, oh, we're in the lottery. Generally speaking, maybe it's 10 players long, but you get my point. It's the toughest. It's not the toughest draft. I think baseball is because you're projecting guys there. But you think because you have a top 10 pick, and it just falls off so fast. I would say that the NBA draft falls off so fast from elite players to role players to, I'm not sure. That's just what happens. So if you're picking where the Warriors have been picking, which is the end of the first round or kind of the middle of the first round, it's a complete crapshoot. You really have to be really bad to get the top players in the league, but they're in the middle. So how do they acquire said players? Well, they're over the cap, all those different numbers that they have, and they can't take on money and all that stuff. So what you have to do, Joe Lacob, unlike business, is that if you have a business that's really, really successful outside of sports, are you going to just absolutely tank it? Well, I guess if you make enough bad decisions, like in sports, you could, but generally speaking, if you're running said business and you know what you're doing, your business is probably going to stay right on that high level. But in sports, it doesn't work that way. So you've got to become bad most times. Like the Spurs were great forever. Look at them now. The Patriots were great forever. Look at them now. You go through these, as you know, as a fan, peaks and valleys. Now, the valley for the Warriors was a really long time, and the peak was really, really high. But you're getting to the point with these older players and the inability, because the way that things are structured in the NBA, to bring in really great players unless you get a dumbass from some organization that is totally inept and you steal somebody from them, and then you keep on going and you get lucky. Or you draft a Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs get a few more years out of it, but you know what I'm saying. So nobody has been stupid enough to gift the Warriors anybody. We can have a debate about Kuminga, but I'm kind of sick of that. So they're a 10th place team, and they're going to probably have to fall further before they get much better. That's kind of where I am with them now. Rather than, and again, I'm sure that you and I will have this conversation more like around trade deadline time. It's not like I'm not going to come on again because you're going to call me out and go, hey, you said we weren't going to do this anymore. Well, we are. I mean, we're still going to talk about the draft, and we're still, about the trading deadline on February 6th and what they could do to get better, and maybe they can. They're going to, we've talked about this a million times, with Steph Curry and what they owe Steph Curry for what he's done for the organization financially and otherwise, they're going to try to get somebody for Steph Curry. My point is, they are what they are. Let's quit talking about them as a team that can be one player away, because they're not. And the natural way of sports is that you have to go before you can then grow to the heights again. It's just kind of the way things work. The 49ers were great. They were terrible. They were pretty good. They were great. They're kind of doing this, but they still have a chance. That's just the natural progression. The Giants were great for a number of years. Now it's like, because what happened? Their players got older. You didn't draft as well. There's all these different things. Some dumb GM from another team didn't gift you a player that was in the prime of his career that could resurrect their franchise. That you got to get lucky in those ways. Sports is that way. So in a long rant roundabout way, I'm just saying, I think the way that we've approached this has been wrong, because we looked at the Warriors and think they're still in a window, and they're not. And they're an upper echelon team, and they can do this, and all they got to do is trade for that guy, and they can't. They're a 10th place team. What is this, the third season? So since 2022, right? Play-in game. They're a play-in team. That's what they are. And a play-in team that is getting older, and as much as I love Steph, and this came up the other day as well, the same old story, play Steph a few more minutes. Okay. Like, I'm not against that, but the Warriors' rationale, and he's playing the lowest minutes of his career, the Warriors' rationale is if we play him a few less minutes now, it will extend his career later. Now, do I know that? I don't know. But they have all these gizmos and devices and all these weird things that they attach to these guys, and they tell the player now, hey, by the way, you're getting tired. No, I'm fine. No, you're tired. You have to sit out. No, really, I'm good. Nope, you're not good. We have this device, and it says you're going to fall over and have a heart attack and croak, so you can't play tonight. Okay, that was extreme, but you understand what I'm saying. So what do you think? Am I totally crazy? The only reason I bring it up is I think it might help your mental state to say, you know what, he's right, which I rarely am, but he's right. I think I need to start looking at this team as, yeah, they're not very good. Like before they went on this big run, And maybe some of you are so young that you don't remember, but before they went on this big run, we didn't have like this expectation level for the Warriors. We thought, well, this is what they are. And there was a glass ceiling that they crushed, but we kind of went like this. And now we go, well, if they're not really good, what's going on? I mean, Steph is still there. Curry's still there. Draymond is still there. Why aren't they better? They're one player away. I keep hearing, they're one player away. They make a trade. Woo, it's on. It's going to be like 22. I don't see it. Could be wrong. Don't see it. That's my rant on them. Let's see. People talking about Ingram. Yeah, see, like I said, maybe I'm 100% crazy. Ingram is not a true number one to me. Would he help? Sure. But you got to give somebody up. And then that goes back to the show kind of ties itself together constantly. Then that goes back to if you want to make a trade, that's fine. The trade machine is fun. I do the trade machine all the time on ESPN. But if you want to do the trade machine and have all that fun, then think about it from the other team's perspective. Like, are you going to be able to give up a bunch of garbage that actually matches from a salary standpoint? Because you have to do that in the NBA, obviously. We've talked about it. And then you get a great player back and you gave up a bunch of garbage. That's what I mean. Isaiah Thomas, like, he used to be able to take advantage of him when he was the Knicks GM. People were constantly calling him because it's like he's going to help us. He's going to help us get better. He's going to take a bunch of garbage back and picks and overbloated contracts, and we're going to get better because of it. There's not really, off the top of my head, that guy in the league right now because everybody's nervous. Nobody wants to make a mistake anymore. Nobody wants social media to get all over him. People are more nervous than ever to make a deal. Unless it's a Jimmy Butler thing where it's like, God, this guy's a complete jackass. He's submarining the franchise. Remember when Pat Riley said a couple weeks ago they weren't trading him? Now they're like, please take him off our hands. And so, yeah, the offers are not going to be great for Jimmy Butler because for the Heat, it's going to be addition by subtraction. And that's what happens when you lose leverage on a player. And they went from, nope, we're holding leverage on Jimmy Butler. You got to give us A, B, C, D, and maybe a couple more of them picks over there. Well, now it's like, take it. Like, if you match salaries with the Heat and maybe give them a kind of a prospect, I don't mind that guy coming off the bench right now that's 24, then I think you can probably get Jimmy Butler. The thoughts of trying to get, a bunch of great players or really, jumpstart things are like Pat Riley calling up and going, hey, how about Kuminga? It's like, how about Kuminga what? For Butler? Are you kidding me? That's not happening. So he's lost a ton of value. So those are the kind of things that you can do, and potentially then the guy behaves himself. He's an asset to your team where he's a complete distraction on another. But I don't see the Warriors getting involved in that guy. So that's a great point right there by BF. We look tired every year. You're talking about the 49ers. Sorry, I'm combining things. You say we look tired every year. How come the Chiefs keep staying healthy and winning? There's a guy named Mahomes. I mean, it's just, if you get Mahomes, you can make a ton of mistakes. Not to go on this rant, and I know you don't like the guy, but the Chiefs play great defense. Give them a ton of credit. That's another team that is, over the last couple of years, added a ton of draft, really good players that are working on cheap contracts. But the great deodorant that is, and I don't know that Pat Mahomes has ever been called a deodorant, but Patrick Mahomes and other great players like him are a deodorant because what they do is they cover up the stink of all the mistakes that you make. So if the Chiefs make a bunch of draft mistakes, and recently they really haven't, but if they do, you put on a little deodorant, it's Patrick Mahomes. Well, Brock Purdy is not really that. Steph Curry was that for a long time. It's a perfect example. You could make mistakes, and you could have bad drafts, and you could have all those things could happen. I've told this story before. I was working in Detroit, and in the great draft, whatever you think of LeBron James, but in the great draft of 2003, in which LeBron went 1, Carmelo went 3, Bosh went 4, and Dwayne Wade went 5. That was 2003's draft. The Detroit Pistons, when I were there, they had just won the championships. They took Darko Milicic. And if you don't know who it is, go back and look it up. The guy had one of the best individual workouts you could ever have. He's about 7 feet tall, and it was a few years after Dirk Nowitzki had been drafted. He got drafted in 98 by the Mavericks, and he started to emerge. So the trend in the NBA was we got to find the next great European shooting big man like Dirk Nowitzki. And so the Pistons took him because of one workout in which he was absolutely great, and everybody's fawning all over this guy. Well, guess what? The Pistons didn't need him then because they had so many great players. They had Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton and Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace and Tayshaun Prince, and they're winning the championship, and everybody's really excited. And then when those guys got too old, our conversations in Detroit turned from, damn, it'd be nice to have Carmelo Anthony right about now, or Dwayne Wade right about now, or Chris Bosh right about now, because they were so good it was a deodorant to the bad choices that they had made. The one bad choice that they had made that crushed the franchise. And honestly, they've never retired. They've never recovered. The Pistons have been trash forever. So those things always come and get you. You know, a great deodorant for the Trey Lance trade was Brock Purdy. He covered it up. But now it's like 3 first-round picks that we gave up. Man, how come we don't have any depth? Because you gave up 3 first-round picks. Trey was one, and you gave up the others. 22 and 23. Is that right? 23 and 24. 22 and they have a first round. Yeah, they had a first round pick. It was Pearsall. 22 and 23. You didn't have first round picks. Those guys would be really great to have right now. Does that deodorant thing work? Just thought of that off the top of my head. Pretty impressed by it. Could be wrong. What else do we got going on today? Man. I think that might be it today, man. We had Guy Haberman on the show. I'm sorry that things got screwed up on YouTube. If you didn't catch that interview, I'll put it back on. Plus, you know what I'll do? I'll separate that interview out as well, because I want to make sure that we are absolutely positively making sure that you get to everything. Remember, a couple of quick things, and if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, I don't have to leave. I have nowhere to be. So if you got any questions, comments, thoughts on anything, we've hit up on Verlander today to a long extent. We talked about the 49ers, which they're going to talk John and Kyle at 11:30, so we'll talk a lot about that, and we'll have some cuts from that tomorrow on the show. We got that going on. Talked a little about the Warriors, 114-99. They lost to the Heat. I didn't get into any personal stuff today or many tangents. I'm disappointed in myself for that. But if you got any other thoughts, but just to let you know, we're on X now, at JohnLundRadio. So if you can't sit here and watch and all those kind of things, grab your phone, take it with you. We're on X, at JohnLundRadio, so make sure you're watching the stream there. We're on YouTube, as we always have been, at JohnLundUnleashed. I can't even say it. At JohnLundUnleashed. So make sure that you are subscribing, telling all your friends and enemies, at JohnLundUnleashed pod. So you got to remember different things. But please subscribe there, tell all your friends, and make sure you're here 8 a.m. Pacific time weekdays. That's when we are on. And, of course, we just joined up with Twitch as well. So we're on any of those platforms that you like to be on. And in addition, we've got a podcast that right after I get off the air here, we hit a button, and that's at John Lund Unleashed, and that's Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your favorite podcast. So there's no excuse for missing any shows unless I screw up and send you to the wrong place. But outside of that, we should be good. Did I say hello to everybody? Is everybody in here today? Are we having a good time today? Did you like Guy Haberman? Who would you like to have next? I am working on, everybody wants to have Tom on the show. We're working on that. In fact, I have a call today that I need to return on that. But did we miss anything? Did I miss any questions? By the way, I'm originally from Southern California. Those fires are awful. Not that that's any breaking news, but I feel terrible. I've had friends get affected and all that kind of stuff, so I hope everybody's okay down there. If you're watching from there, prayers, of course, are with you there. So am I missing anything else? Daryl, people got into Kerr. People hate Kerr. Yeah, that's what happens. Teams get frustrated. They lose talent. Guys get older, and then it's Steve Kerr's fault. Steve Kerr has proven that he can coach. It's not that. It's just we forget. And again, I'm just trying to help you be from a mental standpoint, not be so angry. We like to have fun every single day. If you're new to the show, we do. We love having a great time. It's not Steve Kerr's fault, because what happens is the greatest coaches of all time, and they don't have talent, what happens? Belichick was in New England, won a bunch of Super Bowls. Can he still coach? Probably. I mean, he's at North Carolina. The NFL teams apparently don't think he can, but I do. And when he lost Tom Brady, all of a sudden he sucked. And Steve Kerr, we've talked about the Warriors time and time again. He doesn't have as much talent. He's not very good. Phil Jackson never took a job in which his team didn't have either Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant and Shaq. He wasn't stupid. He's like, I'm not that great of a coach. I'm a good coach. I'm a leader of men. I'm a motivator. I'm going to give you this book to read like Phil Jackson do. I'm very zen. But I can't do I can't make magic out of trash. Everybody, I can't shine shit. Like I can't make, chicken salad out of chicken shit. I don't know. How many other ones can we come up with? If you have great talent, all of a sudden you're a great coach. If you don't have great talent, all of a sudden you're not a great coach. Like Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach. Sorry to tell you, he's a really good coach. They had some injuries, some issues, everything else. Defensive coordinator Nick Sorenson, I didn't like that he was a rookie this year taking over a team that had major Super Bowl aspirations. But when you lose Dre Greenlaw and you lose Hargrave and Bosa misses a bunch of games and Mooney Man Ward has the off-field issues that he has, then all of a sudden, he's not a very good defensive coordinator. If Saleh had been the defensive coordinator of the 49ers this year, how much better would they have been? I mean, they would have been better. I believe that. There is, coaching does make a difference. If we want to go on this tangent, we can. Coaching makes a major difference. There's no question about it, but to a certain extent. It's kind of like amplifying something like, oh, that's really cool, or, whatever. You can come up with a better analogy at this point. My brain is a bit of mush. But Saleh, there's only so much that a coach can do, and really good coaches never take a bad job unless they're just desperate for money. But good coaches generally don't take bad jobs. Who takes the bad jobs? Young guys. Because they sit there, like in this NFL hiring cycle, what's going to happen is the best coaches, like Mike Vrabel. Like, I don't know, is Vrabel going to go to the Patriots because of the Patriot, or Raiders because of the Raiders? The Raiders, to me, is a really terrible job, and I hate to say this, JJ, but the Raiders is a bad job because they don't have a quarterback. And often as a head coach, you are tied in the NFL to your quarterback. So somebody who has a quarterback that you like, now I don't know what you think of Trevor Lawrence, but like Jim Harbaugh, and so Jacksonville's open, but Jim Harbaugh last year was like, I want the Chargers job. Have you seen their quarterback? And all of a sudden they're back in the playoffs. Wow, what a shocker. Can Jim Harbaugh coach? Hell yeah. San Diego, Stanford, the Niners, Michigan, every team that Harbaugh goes to is better. He's a hell of a coach. He's a leader of men. He's all those kind of things. Make fun of kind of his social awkwardness, but Jim Harbaugh can coach. But Jim Harbaugh takes jobs that he can win at. He goes to Michigan because he knows he can recruit there. He goes to the 49ers because he looked at the talent when he came here and said, these guys are really good. I can just bring them together. So he's a good coach. That's what he does. But he looked at the Chargers and he said, they have Justin Herbert. Like, he didn't take a crap job. He didn't go to a place where there wasn't a quarterback. Jim Harbaugh's not stupid. He said, Justin Herbert's the quarterback of the Chargers. That's the best job out there. And all of a sudden, they're back in the playoffs. Wow. Pretty smart guy. All right, I don't need any more tangents. Let's see, George. What George? You want my son, George, on the show? Is that what you're bringing up? Somebody said Lombardi. I'm a big fan of Mike Lombardi. Does a great job, or Mike Lombardi. David Lombardi does a great job of the numbers, and I like him a lot. Let's see. Is that you, Hardy Momo? You say, I should be careful with these because somebody got me the other day. Hey, John, if you had to give a percentage on Purdy signing a contract extension this offseason, what do you think? 50%, 90%? I thought you were going to ask me about the money. He's going to sign a contract 100%. And at 11:30, when you hear John and Kyle, or see John and Kyle, however you're going to do it, I think you can go to 49ers.com and do it. It's 100% it's going to get done. Now, the only two things that are of question with Brock Purdy's contract is, well, there's three, actually. The money, which is always number one, as we have learned on this show by now. How much money, how much guaranteed money are you going to give me? Actual guaranteed money. That's what Purdy cares about. I don't care about dummy years and how many years and all that. It's not the length of the contract, unlike some things in life where length is important. Length is not important in this case because it's dummy years, and what that length provides you is, let's say that just for the sake of our conversation here, that Brock Purdy gets a bonus of, I'm just going to do it easy so it's easy math, $120 million. Well, that $120 is split over the 6 years of the contract, so that's $20 million a year. Does that make sense? I know I'm not a math guy, and I don't want to do math. But $120 million guaranteed over 6 is $20 a year on the guarantee. Now, they can front load the contract, back load the contract, whatever they do, but that's, you distribute the money over those years. That's why they need length in a contract, because you get all that money. You can't do it on a one-year deal. That's why getting franchise tagged is terrible for a team, because let's just, again, sake of conversation, you franchise tag a guy and the average which is the top 5 highest paid at his position. That's what the franchise tag is. So you can't come to a long-term agreement. You've got to pay a guy the average of the top 5 at his position. So it's around this for a quarterback. Might even be more. But let's say it's $50 million for a quarterback. So Kirk Cousins, who was on the franchise tag for when they were the Redskins forever, that 50 goes right on you. That 50 goes right on your cap right away. So you just paid a guy $50 million, and you can't distribute that anywhere because it's a one-year deal. That's what it is. It's kind of like in baseball. You do a high AAV, as we talked about before with Pete Alonso maybe. It's just 1 year. You can handle it. But in the NFL, it's different because you have a salary cap, and so that $50 million for that quarterback goes on that year, and that's it. You can't distribute it. You can't do anything like that. It goes on right now. So for Brock Purdy, length of contract is important so they can distribute the money. But the biggest thing to me with Brock Purdy is, when is it getting done? And Brock Purdy in those cuts from the locker room the other day said, and lots of people say a lot of things. I'm sure Brock Purdy wants the deal done tomorrow. But I've told you this. The agent wants the highest amount of money so that he can go, did you see what I got Brock Purdy? Saw that money I got Purdy? I'm the man. Now I'm going to sign your son too because he's going to do the same thing. It's like Jerry Maguire and Kush. I'm signing your son. Did you see what I just got Brock Purdy? And he's not even that good. No, I'm just kidding. He is. He's going to bounce back next year. But Brock Purdy, it's when he gets it done. Because we saw this year, and we've talked about it, you got to get on the same page. You got to sign. He's not going to play next year, even though he's got a year left on his deal. People forget that. He's got a year left on his deal, and he is eligible for an extension. That's what it is. So could he not sign a contract? I guess he could. But he's not playing without one because if Brock gets hurt, then Brock's out a lot of money. So Brock's not going to play. It's when he gets the money. It can't be in July in training camp. It can't be August and when training camp's going. It can't be September, a week out from the season, because then what's Brock doing with the team? What's Brock doing with Ayuk and Pearsall and all these guys that he's going to get on the same page with? He's doing nothing because he doesn't have a deal done. So you asked me if it was going to be 50%, 90%. It's going to be 100%. He's getting a deal done. More important to me is when does he get it done so that he feels good and can throw with the guys and be at OTAs and be the leader. And that's what he said the other day. He wants it done so that he's at OTAs and practicing and working with guys, and he's got that behind him. The 49ers famously like to say, okay, we'll just get it done in July, August, September. We'll just get that done. That's what they've done with a lot of players that they've re-signed in their regime that they've drafted and wanted to keep. That can't be the case with Brock. Matthew asks, can we get a Casey Schmidt trading card value update? Oh, those are terrible. If you're new to the show, when I was on KNBR for years, so I'm a card collector to a certain point. I'd love to talk to you about cards if you're a card guy, but I'm a card collector, and so I'm not trying to claim that I have the best card collection. I don't have like a Mickey Mantle or something like that, original, that I'm going to make millions off of. It's not to that extent. And I'm pissed off, just like you are, that I had Nike boxes full of cards. The Ricky Henderson card that goes for $1 gazillion now. Rest in peace, Ricky. I had probably 20 of those in a Nike box somewhere. So, I got to get over that. I still haven't. But I love to trade cards. So I went all in on Casey Schmidt. Somebody had told me how good he was going to be, and I got lucky at a shop, just random out of a pack, which I never do. And I got like it was like a 1 of 10, and it was, some sort of, prism, this, that, and the other, and it was a signed card. And I was like, wow, if this guy hits it, this could be worth something. And so we joked about it for years and years and years, and I bought so I got that one, and then I went all in on Schmidt, and I probably bought, 10 more cards. And Mike Kohler, who's now the program director at KNBR, does a lot of stuff at San Jose Giants games, and he would give me Casey Schmidt updates, and he's hitting, and he's going to be good, and he's really great defensively. And then he had the last name Schmidt, and I'm like, Michael Jack Schmidt. So I'm thinking, wow, this guy's going to hit. So I went in and bought a bunch of cards and got all excited, and then I don't know if there's any reason to be excited anymore. I don't know. But yeah, Matthew, I did give you an update. I have lots of them. I'll sell them to you cheap. I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous that he's not going to be very good. So anyway, yeah, there's an update on that. Thanks for a great show. Thank you, Joy P. I'm sorry that things got screwed up. We will make sure that gets fixed in the future. Good to see you, Skills Report. Lund, what's up, Skills Report? Good to see you. All right, anything else? We've rolled for about 2 hours, or a little bit less, actually, because we were late. It was an audio, I don't know these audio issues, but I was getting Guy Haberman all set up, so we probably hit up about, 8:20 or something like that. Tommy says, Sorenson couldn't be any worse as a special teams coordinator. Yeah, that's a weird, Guy said that it wasn't weird when he joined us earlier on in the show, and if you missed the show, go back. A guy joined us for about the first 20, 25 minutes of the show, and he is awesome. But I said to him, I thought Nick Sorensen was weird. That not Nick Sorensen's weird. I should put that a different way. Nick Sorensen's a nice guy. But what I was saying was it was weird to take him from defensive coordinator to special teams coordinator. But he was a special teams coordinator for a lot of years. Jacksonville, Seattle, those kind of things. Seems like a good guy. And if they think he's going to be a good special teams coordinator, I was going to say they get the benefit of the doubt, but they don't, because Brian Schneider was terrible. So I don't know, but he was a special teams coordinator for a long time, was never a defensive coordinator. And on a team that wants to win a Super Bowl, as we discussed many times, I thought that was from day one not a good decision. So I'm not going back with 2020 goggles. I thought that was bad from the get-go. But if certain people say that he's going to be good at that and he's not going to be a problem, because if I was the defensive coordinator and then you demoted me to special teams, I don't know. That's a weird dynamic to me. But the 49ers, from all you hear out of HQ down there in Santa Clara, that they love Nick Sorenson, and then they want to keep him on the staff. Well, if they're going to keep him on the staff, is he going to be a defensive assistant and try to, become better and then be a DC? Or do you go back and say, you've been good at this before. We need one of these guys. We like you. How about that? So, and he's an impressive guy. I mean, he interviews and gets the DC job. So, and as you said, he couldn't be any worse. And by the way, if you're just joining us, we have talked about the defensive coordinator position. And one thing I'll do before I get out of here, because at the beginning of the show I did this, so let me just pop this up real quick. If you've been here the whole time, I'm really glad about it. But there's early this morning, Josina Anderson, that wasn't 13 minutes ago. That was 13 minutes since I screenshotted it. But she says, I'm told Robert Saleh's first head coach interview is with the Jags today. Another head coach interview expected thereafter. 49ers are also expected to make him an offer at defensive coordinator. And clearly, I don't have to tell you this, but I just will, that if Robert Saleh gets a Jags job or another one, he's not going to be the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. So they're kind of holding their breath probably a little bit, saying, okay. I don't know how hot of a candidate Saleh is. I do think in 2 years, if he runs the 49ers defense at a really high level, which I still think they have the personnel to do, then Robert Saleh could have maybe his pick of jobs. And the Jags aren't bad because, as I told you just a minute ago, if you have a quarterback in place, you're probably ahead of the game. That's why I don't think the Raiders are a great job. Now, maybe you don't like Trevor Lawrence. He's got paid, $55 million a year. And if I'm Brock Purdy, I'm looking at Trevor Lawrence going, I'm not taking a dime less than that guy. And I don't care if he was the first overall pick and I was the last overall pick. Trevor Lawrence has not been good. He's regressed greatly. And he had Doug Peterson, an offensive mind, as his head coach. He got Brian Thomas Jr., the kid out of LSU this year. I mean, look, I'm not studying the Jags. I'm not saying they're great or he has enough weapons or he doesn't. I don't know. But I'm just saying that the Jags is not a terrible job. They do have some talent. Now, if Trent Baalke's, I know that you're going to say that, so I'm going to beat you to the punch. That if Trent Baalke, that's a terrible Trent Baalke. Let me try again. Let me try this again. Hey, you got an ACL injury, I might consider. No, that's terrible. I know I can do better than that. Anyway, you get my drift. But I wouldn't be excited to work for Trent Baalke. But again, that might be the reason that he's getting the interview, because Robert Saleh has been around for a long time. I'm sure he and Trent Baalke know each other. It goes back to my theory of just follow the crumbs to the people that know each other, and you're probably going to find out who's going to coach who. So HR says the Warriors are ass cheeks. Thank you. I like saying that. Ass cheeks without Kuminga. They are, and maybe that's one thing that the Warriors are looking at right now, going, we are really bad, and we're not trading Jonathan Kuminga, because before, 10 or 12 or how many ever games, he was averaging over 20 a game and opened some things up. So, yeah, maybe they're just looking at everything and saying, maybe this guy isn't so bad. Or maybe they're just shooting like death like they are right now. I mean, I'm not going to pop up the box score because it's depressing, but let's just say this without I have the box score here, but I'm not going to show it to you. Without getting too much into this whole thing, Steph was great per usual last night. Everyone was, to steal your word, ass cheeks. Nobody could shoot. The Warriors cannot shoot outside of Steph Curry. Mario says Baalke will hire Saleh just to spite us. He might. No, he's not going to do that. They got to get it right. I mean, it's amazing that Trent Baalke still has a job, just like it was amazing near the end that he lived off one draft, the 2011 draft, where he got Alden and Kaepernick and some of those guys. And then after that, it was complete garbage. And he lasted as long as he did. He just must be great at playing the game. The climbing the ladder game and the schmoozing game. And he probably gets the perfect Christmas gifts for everybody around the office and the right whiskey or whatever for the owner. And I mean, he just must be awesome at that game. And we all know guys like that in business. Like, how does Johnson continue to climb the ladder in the company? Well, he's just a schmoozer, man. He just knows what he's doing. And I know people resent that, but that's a thing. Like, you got to get better at that. I'm terrible at it, awful at it. That whole game. That's why I do what I do for a living. Because it's like, I'm not a great schmoozer. I'm not a great ass kisser. I'm not a great, I'm opinionated, so I just sit there and say what I think, and that's not good when you're trying to climb the ladder. So Trent Baalke must be just amazing at that, because it's like the owner of the Jags would just be saying, like, but Trent, we're so bad, and these picks are terrible. Did I mention how great your wife looked the other night? Here's Johnny Walker Blue. Have you tried? I mean, better than Johnny Walker Blue. But do you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's just like he can probably change the topic very well and schmooze into this and schmooze into that, and all of a sudden he's still the guy there. And you're going, didn't I fire that guy? Aren't we terrible? Like, what the what? I don't know, Jedi mind tricks? I don't know how he keeps a job. And he's not going to, my point is that he's not going to just hire Robert Saleh to go, ha-ha, to Jed York. Now, maybe, but I doubt it. Because if that person fails, then he is certainly gone this time, right? Has to be. No matter how good of a ladder climber you are, no matter how big of a schmoozer and ass kisser you are, you got to be gone after this next one, right? I don't know. He might be that good. He might be that good. This is a great point by Edison. Will Saleh be hired by Green Bay for their defense after he got fired from the Jets? So his whole story with this Green Bay was good friends with, you know this, with LaFleur, with the head coach, Matt LaFleur of the Packers. They were best men at each other's wedding. So, you know, Kyle and he are close, Robert Saleh, but he and Matt Schneider are best friends. So I was completely shocked because, I mean, I don't know if this report is accurate, but it's what's out there, is that Robert Saleh was making $20,000 a day for not coaching the Jets. So he gets fired. He's got a big contract still. He could be on a beach that's where I would be, or wherever you want to go. You want to tour Europe. He's got $20,000 a day. You got to try hard to spend that money. So he does have 7 kids, or maybe it's 8 by now. I have no idea. He's out of control. But but Robert Saleh, it could be on a beach. It could be anywhere, making a bunch of money. And he decided, I'm sure LaFleur called him, being the friends that they are, and said, hey, man, why don't you come oversee the defense, hang out? You don't have to work crazy hours of a coach, but I've been talking about that as an overseer for Kyle's offense, somebody like that, but to just say, hey, just tell us what you think, be an advisor. And that's what he was. And so I wouldn't be doing that. I'm sure he's not making a bunch of money. Green Bay's had a really good defense all year long, but let's say they flame out in the playoffs and they just get absolutely boat raced this weekend and they give up 50. Then would Green Bay be looking for a defensive coordinator? Robert Saleh's already been there. LaFleur loves him. Yeah, I could see that. He's already been there, done that as far as the 49ers. But I've told you this before. Robert Saleh is going to take, I think, I'm not in Robert Saleh's beautiful bald head, but I think that Robert Saleh is going to take the best job to get him a head coaching job. Now, maybe it's this year. I kind of think it's not, because going from the Jets to the next opportunity, I think a lot of people think, hey, you need to clear your head a little bit. Not that you're not a good coach. It's just that I don't know that our owner is going to take the Jets coach when the Jets were so bad for so long and approve that as they want to. You got to understand how owners think. You don't, but I'm just kind of telling you because I know a little bit, is that they want that wow hire. So even though winning the press conference is a really stupid thing, that's how owners think a lot of times. And so they get excited. So they think to themselves, Shad Khan is the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, very powerful man, big freaking ego. So he's thinking to himself, okay, if I introduce Robert Saleh as the head coach of my Jacksonville Jaguars, is that going to excite the fan base? Are they going to go out and buy season tickets? Now, if I hire, I know, I'm just because it came in my head. Like if you hire John Gruden, who apparently is back in the hiring cycle, does your fan base get excited? Does your fan base go buy tickets? Maybe they do. Oh, yeah, because what you have to do is you have to get the casual fan. The hardcores, we're here, man. We're hooked on the NFL like crack, so we're not going anywhere. He's not trying to get us. He has us. What he's trying to get is the casual fan who may or may not buy season tickets, the casual fan who may or may not buy a jersey, the casual fan, that you're trying to make them a hardcore fan, or at least a hardcore fan than they are. And so does Robert Saleh do that? Does he get the fan base excited? I mean, if you know football, he probably would, but the casuals are going to go, wasn't that the guy that was just fired by the Jets? He stinks. That's a terrible hire. F the Jaguars. The Jaguars. So they don't like that hire. John Gruden's not better. He's not a better head coach to me than what Robert Saleh is going to be going into the future. Has he been in the past? Yes. Will he be in the future? I don't think so. But let's just say the Jacksonville Jaguars then hire John Gruden. Well, lots of people know who he is. A lot of casuals know who he is. So you won the press conference. They bought season tickets. They're very excited. They bought a Trevor Lawrence jersey. Yeah. They're buying visors because they're excited about John Gruden. And then the season comes and they win 4 games. And too many owners, this is why they fail, honestly, as owners, is because they don't think entirely about football. They think how the fan base is going to react and how the turnstiles are going to work and how many people are going to buy stuff, and that's how they do it. That's why young coaches get fired a lot, is because it's like Ben Johnson. the offensive coordinator of the Lions. I don't know if Ben Johnson's going to do anything. I have no idea. Lots of guys are great coordinators and bad head coaches. Some guys are great coordinators and great head coaches. Who knows? Some guys are leader of men. Some guys are offense, defense. You know all those kind of things. But Ben Johnson's the hot name. Well, all the owners know that. So, again, I'm just using the Jags because Robert Saleh is going to interview with them if you're just joining the show, and then maybe he's going to talk to the 49ers if he doesn't get a head coaching gig before then. But Ben Johnson's the hot name. And so all these owners who really know nothing about football whatsoever, know a ton about business, but own like 100 businesses, so it's not like they're putting all their time into their team, and they say, "Guy, I heard Ben Johnson's name. That Detroit offense is awesome. Get that guy." And so now he's excited, fan base is excited, and they don't know if the guy can coach because they didn't really hire a coach. They hired a concept, which is that Lions offense is really good. Yeah, that Lions offense has Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, and you got to give it up to Jared Goff and a really good offensive line. Do we have that? No. Again, the show goes in a circle. The circle is you got to have good players to be a good coach. We talked about that an hour ago. All right, I'm going to end on that target because we are going in a circle. But it wasn't like I didn't repeat myself on it. Saleh's going to start a podcast to make me money. I'd love to have Saleh on. He's great. I've talked to him a few times. He's amazing. You know who knows him? Tim Ryan knows him well. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, EB. Saleh's got, like, all of us in this room, tell me if I'm 100% wrong. I don't mean to go on another tangent, and we're past 10 o'clock, so I got to get out of here pretty soon. My wife's going to come in here and go, "Help around the house, will you? What are you doing?" I'm having a good time, and hopefully you are too. Now I just lost my train of thought by doing that. Tell me what I was going to go off on a tangent about. I totally forgot. You brought up here, hold on a minute. You said something. Don't bring up Joy Taylor to me. 49ers faithful says Balky is the Joy Taylor of the NFL. That's crazy. That's crazy, that whole story, man. Come on. I got to get reminded by that. Saleh's going to start a podcast. I went into that whole thing, make a bunch of money. I like Robert Saleh. What was I talking about, man? I'm just crazy. Let's see. Who are the Raiders targeting? That's a good question, Smiley Dan. What I heard, the only reason I looked into this is because my son is such a massive Raiders fan. So I was under the impression, and I haven't checked my phone lately, so probably lots of things are moving and shaking, so I should probably check my phone before I say this. But I thought, well, they fired Jerod Mayo to hire Mike Vrabel. That's going to be done in a day or two. Now, maybe, and this is another coaching thing that you need to know about, Robert Kraft is desperate. He's not getting any younger. He might have a young girlfriend, but he's not getting any younger. And so what happens is these older owners, except for Jerry Jones, who doesn't want to be overshadowed by anybody, so he's not going to hire a good coach ever. He wants a low-profile guy so he can shine in the spotlight. But as far as the Patriots, Robert Kraft's getting older. He wants an established head coach. I don't know what he was thinking a year ago when he hired Jerod Mayo, who took over a terrible team, and he thought he's going to do miracles. It just makes no sense. Again, if you have talent, you can be a good coach. Patriots have no talent, have a rookie coach, not going to work out. I could have told you that last year. But Mike Vrabel has had success in this league. He'll excite the fan base. He's a former Patriot, won lots of Super Bowls, friend to Tom Brady. And so, therefore, that would make a lot of sense for the Patriots. I thought that was done. But then, speaking of Tom Brady, he's going to be very influential in the Raiders. And if you know anything about the Raiders, Mark Davis is a fanboy. And so what happens is he listens to people who are not necessarily qualified to be making these kind of decisions. I'm not saying Tom Brady isn't, but he's never done it. So maybe he can do that. Maybe Tom Brady would be great at it. But a lot of great players are not good coaches, are not good executives. It's just, that's kind of a fact. Now, Jerry West there's a number who have been, but the majority of them have not been very good. So Tom Brady has his ear. In the past, my friend Bill Romanowski, George Atkinson, Cliff Branch, the late Cliff Branch, rest in peace, all those guys had Mark Davis's ear because Mark Davis fanboyed on those guys, and they had influence over Mark Davis. Whether they knew football, they're great football players, but whether they knew personnel, knew the league or whatever, they had influence on Mark Davis. They did. I know it. So now he gets there and he gets Tom Brady in there, and it took a minute or two, and Tom Brady has a piece of the team, and now it's like, "Hi, Tom, what would you do?" Well, I wouldn't get a haircut where you get a haircut, but what were you asking me? Oh, yeah, about the team? Sorry, I told you, man. I told you no personal shots on the show, and then I just did it. If I had a ruler, I would spank myself. That's uncalled for. I'm not going to do that. That's immature. Okay, rewind that. I never said it. Strike you from the record. Tom Brady has influence over Mark Davis because Mark Davis is like, wow, remember that time yeah, I do. and it was a snowstorm, and you should hate Tom Brady, and you should never hire him for anything, but you're the Raiders, and you fanboy. So now, whether Brady is qualified for this or not, he's going to have major influence in who the Raiders draft, if they draft a quarterback, who they sign, if they sign a quarterback, who the head coach is going to be. And if that's the case, this all comes together. If that's the case for the Raiders, then Mike Vrabel is going to be a major candidate there, which allows him to have leverage and drive up the price. So who has more money? Well, the Patriots do. Robert Kraft does. Now he's going to pay Gerard Mayo. But right now, I know I'm going on a long tangent about this. You asked me about what the Raiders were going to do. They're still paying John Gruden. They're still paying Josh McDaniels. They're still paying Antonio Pierce. And it's not that all the money with the Raiders is tied up in the Raiders. It's not like Mark Davis has a bunch of money sitting around. They moved to Las Vegas so that the value of the Raiders would go up and all these different things. And I'm not his financier. I don't know what the finances are I'm not his CP. I'm nothing of those things. I don't run Mark Davis's money, not his banker or anything else. I don't know what Mark Davis has, but I know this: when he was in Oakland, he was broke, and they couldn't sign guys. And they literally, you say, this guy's going to get $50 million up front. You realize that you have to have $50 million, and you have to put it. The NFL has to know you have it. You have to prove to them you have it. Well, the Raiders didn't. That's why they couldn't sign guys, because they literally didn't have the money. So then they moved to Vegas. They have some money, but they don't have more money than what Robert Kraft does, especially when the Raiders are paying 3 X's. Could you imagine being divorced 3 times and having to pay all those X's? I don't care how much money you make. That's going to affect things. And it's the same thing with the Raiders. You're paying 3 X's right now. You're still paying Gruden. I think it's $10 million a year. You're paying Josh McDaniels for being garbage, and you're paying Antonio Pierce because, again, you fanboyed. Hey, he says he likes the Raiders. He was a great player. That's my guy, Antonio Pierce. I love him. He doesn't make logical decisions. He makes fanboy decisions. And now Brady, who is a great player, but we don't know if he's an executive or can pick out quarterbacks, because there's been guys who have been doing this for years. The hardest thing to do in sports, by far, not by far, in the baseball draft, trying to pick an 18-year-old and project what he's going to be when he's 24 is difficult. So that's maybe harder. But one of the most difficult things in sports is to draft a quarterback, because we've seen it time and time again. That guy's can't miss. Oops. That guy's can't miss. Oops. Hey, this guy was the last pick in the draft. He's pretty good. So there's a lot. I don't care if you've been doing this for 25 years, 30 years, whatever the case may be. Every guy has a bomb. Patrick Mahomes was taken 10th. The Niners picked 2nd. They picked 3rd after trading with the Bears, who picked 2nd, who took Mitch Trubisky. How'd that work out? So it's hard to draft a quarterback, and Brady's going to jump in, and just because he played the position, people think he knows what he's looking for. I think Kyle probably knows what he's looking for too, but you're not always going to hit, and he took Trey Lance. It happens. He took Brock Purdy last. It happens. So that doesn't mean because Brady played the position, he's all of a sudden going to be a guy. He's not a quarterback whisperer. Now, maybe they hit the right guy, but he said he likes Shedeur Sanders, and he and I can respectfully disagree on that. I'm not a big Shedeur Sanders guy. And you'll play this back when he gets to the Pro Bowl and wins 5 Super Bowls. Maybe he's going to be great. I don't know. I'm not saying I know more than personnel guys. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to be great. Could be wrong. So Brady's going to have a lot of influence on who the next head coach will be, which could put Vrabel in the thought there, or somebody that Tom Brady knows and is part of, although they just did the Patriots thing. They had a GM from the Patriots. They had a head coach from the Patriots. They blew him out. And now Tom Telesco, ex of the Chargers, is running things, and they don't know what they're going to do as a head coach, but we're hearing that Tom Brady's going to have a lot of influence. Boy, that was a long one. Drafting a kicker. I'm not going to get on a tangent about drafting a kicker. You're just trying to bait me into that. Let's see. San Jose Jazz fan. Are you a Jazz fan? Or is it Jazz music? Are you a Sharks fan? Mark does it to himself. Al was so pissed he threw Mark out of the room. True story. He let him run Raiders Image. He let Mark run Raiders Image, which is, obviously all the stuff. That was about it. All right. I think we have done enough damage for one day. It's almost 10:30. We've been here about 2 hours or so with no break. And Mario says, with you on Shedeur. Look, I'm not saying I know, because like I just stated to you, it's other than maybe projecting a 17-year-old, 18-year-old pitcher to the major leagues in 7 or 8 years, or the guy that the Giants are looking at drafting at 16. He's an international shortstop who they've probably talked to a number, maybe 3 times through an interpreter. I mean, really? I mean, I don't know if he's thin, big, whatever the case may be, but, Luciano we got all excited about, and maybe he could still do it. But for how many years, and they got Luciano through the international draft, how many years do we go, this guy? You don't know. How do you project a guy 7-8 years down the line? Maybe he's just going to say, I'm not really a baseball guy anymore. So you just don't know. But other than that, I think the quarterback is the toughest position, and it's been proven. When Brock Purdy goes last and is better than Trevor Lawrence, who goes first, and they're going to get similar contracts, you don't know what the hell you're doing when you're trying to find a quarterback. Nobody does. I don't care if somebody says, I nail every quarterback. No way. No way. Jazz lowercase. Very cool. That Sanders kid will be the next Lamar Jackson. That's what I mean. Like Lamar Jackson in that draft. And by the way, it's looking better. Like Baker Mayfield was the first pick in that draft. Sam Darnold was the 3rd pick in that draft. There's a bunch. Josh Rosen, I think, was 10th in that draft. Josh Allen was 7th. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I'm very impressed with myself. And then Lamar Jackson was 32nd. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are fighting for MVP. Lamar's going to the Hall of Fame. I don't think there's any question about it. Even if he stopped playing today, I think Lamar Jackson's a Hall of Famer. Some people don't like the style. You got to tailor your offense around Lamar Jackson, all that kind of stuff. I don't care. Lamar Jackson's great. He was the 32nd pick of the first round. Baltimore moved up into the first round, last pick of the first round, and took him. The Arizona Cardinals took Josh Rosen at 10 ahead of him. The Chicago Bears took Mitch Trubisky after moving up a spot with the 49ers to take Trubisky, and Mahomes and Watson were sitting there. Now, Watson stinks now, but you get my point. Rosen, I know, Joe. It's crazy. All right, that'll do it for today. We had a great time today. Thanks to Guy Haberman. Sorry if I made people sit in another room. There was some confusion there. I apologize. We will get that fixed, some of these minor tweaks and all these kind of things. We'll do that. Please make sure that you are subscribing to the podcast, John Lund Unleashed, and it's on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Also, YouTube channel, which we always broadcast on, at John Lund Unleashed. Please become a subscriber. Hit the like button. That's what they all say. Pound the like button. Hit the like button. Please subscribe. Tell all your friends and enemies that the show is absolutely tremendous. More and more guests as we get things going. What else did I miss? We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. So find me there at John Lund Unleashed. All social media. I always respond here in the chat and after the show. So make sure you hit me up. Twitter, X, I'm most active on at JohnLundRadio. Where else are we? Oh, speaking of X, we broadcast there too, so take your phone with you. I think that's all the damage I can do for a day. What's today, Wednesday? Oh, I skinned her car today. Very nice. Have a tremendous hump day. I love you all deeply, and we will reconvene tomorrow at 8 a.m. unless there is breaking news. We're going to talk all about Kyle and John at 11:30. In an hour, they're going to speak, so we're going to talk all about that as well. Have a wonderful Wednesday.